Okay, I'd like to welcome you all to our very new concept of doing a management training session combined with software. My name is Kelly Bennett, otherwise known as Kelly the Coach. I actually started my business in Calgary in 1987. I actually was working for the Calgary Board of Education at the time, did not like my job. I'd never seen so many people do so little work for so much money with so much complaint in my life. And I left that horrible environment and I started a business called Starting a Successful Business Workshops. And I traveled across Canada, eventually to 153 different cities, teaching people how to start a business for a living. And I liked it. You know, you're teaching people how to start a business and they're all excited and they're going to make lots of money and they can't see anything going wrong. They have no idea what it's going to be like. But now I do business management training and helping people fix problems, and the enthusiasm isn't always the same as somebody who's just fresh starting. Now, having said that, one of my favorite things that I learned from my mentor, Bob O'Connor, a great guy, trained me for years, is that he said, if you stopped today and thought, you know what if I was starting just right now and you ran your business like you just started it yesterday, he said your business would instantly improve. Because when you first start, you got your business cards, you're in the grocery store, you're getting your stuff, you turn around to the person behind you, hey, where do you get your car fixed? And you're talking to other people and maybe putting your business card under people's windshields, which is not a good idea, but we have that enthusiasm and we tend to lose that. Anyway, so I started that workshop, and then eventually I wrote a workshop on business management, one on marketing and financial management and business plan, and I sent the flyer to British Columbia, Canada. I'm from Canada, and I received a phone call from the University College of the Fraser Valley asking me if I could do what I did for the automotive industry. And I said, actually, I'm going to date myself here, but I was a service advisor in Calgary in 1978, 79, and 80. It was a Texaco gas station, so I'm dating myself. In Canada, we haven't had Texaco in how long? And it was a three-bay shop, and I ran that for about a 3-year period. I recall gas was 16.7 cents a liter. And shortly, I'm going to be introducing Mike Kelly, who's a good friend of mine and a business guy, and he's working with Gemcar. And he did a software demo for Gemcar. I was up in Edmonton teaching a live class, and Mike was in BC doing it remotely. And I remember sitting there watching the first ever demonstration of Gemcar, and I was getting angrier and angrier and angrier. The president of Gemcar actually heard me talk about this last night, and he must wonder why I was saying that. But I have a very transparent face, I'm told, and somebody looked at me while Mike was doing the demo, and they said, are you okay? And I said, no. And they thought, what's he doing wrong? But I didn't want to interrupt. So at the end of it, I said to Mike, I'll tell you, I'm sitting here very angry because I'm watching the stuff that advisors can do now. When I was writing service, there was no speed dial phones. There was no ordering parts online. We didn't have computers. Everything was handwritten. And I'm watching that you can text somebody a picture of their car. We couldn't do that. We had to call the person at home or at work. We couldn't get a hold of them if they weren't at home at work. We didn't even have answer machines in the day. They were just starting to come out. And we'd have to phone somebody and say, oh, Mike, you won't believe what we saw in your car. Can you come down here? And I'm watching that you can walk out to a car with a handheld scanner, scan the VIN number, and it populates all this data, and it goes to Carfax and pulls up the information. And you go to Canada 411, if they have a phone number, you put it in there, and it populates that. And I'm looking at this thinking, oh, my God, we would store winter tires, and people would come in at the end of the season and go, oh, well, that scratch wasn't there before. And I'm watching Mike show that you could take a picture of the tire, and if the customer comes back and they go, well, that scratch wasn't there before, well, let's take a look at the picture we took when you dropped off the tires, and they go, oh, I guess it was there. Anyway, the software is brilliant. I've been training now for 29 years, and I've seen a lot of different software packages. And the reason I wanted to do this demo is because I'm a huge fan of the software because of what it does. But it's not just my perspective. In my classes, I have people that that use the software and love it. So back to my story. So I was teaching some business management, got a phone call from the University College, went there, did automotive, and that's now all I do. I've traveled all across Canada, trained thousands, tens of thousands of people, all 50 US states, and been back focused working on Canada. And just recently, as I said, I was looking at this Gemcar software, and it was absolutely brilliant. So we've got a couple of people on the line with us today. We're doing this as an interview style, and we've got Mike Kelly. And Mike, if you could please introduce yourself to us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Kelly. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm a bit of a veteran in this industry. I'm in my 53rd actually 54th year in this industry, long time. I started out as an auto technician in the UK as a Jaguar and Land Rover technician, and qualified, and then came to Canada, and eventually moved from working on the floor on the cars to managing the shops, and from there to Midas, and eventually ran Midas in Europe, and then Midas in Australia, and then the franchising end of Midas in Canada, and then about 30 odd, almost 40 years ago, I left the corporate world and I became an entrepreneur, and I purchased a small group of Midas franchises in British Columbia, a couple in Vancouver, and the rest in Kelowna, Kamloops, and Victoria. And from there, I grew my small chain from 5 locations to 14 locations. And for 30 odd years, I managed those 14 businesses with managers in each one. We had software, but the software that we had was very rudimentary. It was really, more than anything, a software to manage the inventory. And in those days, of course, we carried a fairly large inventory. We had an average of around $100,000 of worth of inventory in each shop, primarily mufflers and brake parts. So I've had a lot of experience at the shop level in this industry, and as a result of that, when I got involved with GemCar and I make a presentation to my clients, I give them a presentation based on their life, the world that they live in. I don't necessarily concentrate so much on the software, but how the software can help them do their work. It's a software that allows them to streamline their operations. It can help in primarily in generating a greater bottom line, and that's what really, at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's about making money in this business, and there's an awful lot of people in this industry today that are working harder than they've ever worked before. They've probably got more customers than they've ever had in their lives. They're spending more time in their businesses and making the least amount of money they've ever made, and there's reasons for that, and there's probably nobody better in this world that I know of, at least, than Kelly Bennett to flesh out the reasons why they're not making the money. But the software can help in so many ways. And so my presentation of the software, as I said a minute ago, is focused on how it can help them in their world. I speak about it from that perspective. Having said that, I'll turn it back to Kelly, and he can introduce my colleague who is located in the United States, Kevin, who has another perspective of GemCar and how it can help in the business.
Anyway, Mike, I just
Kelly,
want to interject. I just want to interject. I have huge respect for you, sir. You were in one of my classes. I think it was a World Pack class 5 or 6 years ago, and you were somebody sitting in the room. I didn't really separate you from anybody for any reason. And then I heard that he owned 14 Midas shops, and I thought, oh my God. I'm glad I didn't know that before, because I would have been intimidated, partly because you're older than me and more wise than me, and you've got that $1 million image. I thought, who's this $1 million image guy? Like, you look good. You know what I mean? You come across well, and so anyway, but we've been working together for over the last 5 years. We set up a training facility in British Columbia, and Mike, I have absolute huge respect for you. Yeah, I like to bug you sometimes and say that you used to do the parts returns for Noah's Ark, but I do have huge respect for you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. I've only known Kevin for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years now, and I love the perspective that he has, the passion he has for the industry. So Kevin, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Kelly. Good afternoon. And thank you, Mike, for your testimony as well. It's always nice to be refreshed of all the things that we all bring to the table and how we share. So I come from the parts side of the business. I started out a delivery truck working in the mid-'80s, and so I'm celebrating, I guess, my 28th year in the parts side of the business. I worked for a bunch of independents that, as everybody knows, the acquisition time and time get gobbled up, and the little independent jobbers are continuing to go out of business and being absorbed by the larger chains. So I managed to stay in rural New England, where I really enjoyed my family. I married my high school sweetheart, and I basically stayed in the parts business just because I've always been a car guy. I have a couple of antiques. I've enjoyed restoring them, working on other people's vehicles. But at the end of the day, the parts stores, the challenges that I came across was that the the people on the other end of the phone in a lot of cases were calling around shopping for price. They wanted me to compete with the national guys, or they had a problem with this and that, and then computers started to come into the industry, and we started to see that, you know, some of the older gentlemen that had been around for a long time really didn't have the financial literacy. So I quickly took to that side of the business and just found myself going and helping them after hours, staying late, doing open the store 9 o'clock at night, running parts to them because they were working 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night trying to get jobs done because they were overbooking. And that's when I realized it was really a problem in the industry. And as software became available, the parts side, we've had it for many years. And it became part of my culture. I understood it. I connect with it. I like it. I embrace technology. So my perspective really comes from the dollars and cents, managing large SKUs. I worked for a lot of the independents that got gobbled up. I worked for a lot of the corporate parts stores that you all are all familiar with. 5 years ago, I left probably the largest acquisition that I went through with a multi-store. I have a paint background as well, handling outside sales for collision shops, body shops, mechanical repair in New England. And the large acquisition was Advanced Auto Parts, and they purchased CarQuest. And so a $4.9 billion company became a $9.9 billion company overnight. And I just decided that I really was going to do something a little different. And that's where GemCar really, I feel, is a fit for me. It's something that I can help. I can teach people. I can help them navigate, get the just-in-time inventory that they need, manage their payables, help them pay their bills. Because I've been a supplier going around trying to collect, and people are having a hard time making extra money. So that's kind of my perspective where I've come from, and I'm really excited to be part of this discussion today, Kelly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. So I love the perspective of somebody who was doing 14 stores. We've got Kevin, who's been in the parts background, and I've got 29 years of business management training. I want to do something that I've only ever done once, and I did it yesterday. And it's interesting, 29 years teaching some things you would think I get bored, and the answer is no. I don't ever remember in my career being bored. And I want to tell you some things that I've learned, and this is a bit of wisdom from watching what I've seen. One of the things that amazes me the most, somebody interviewed me recently and asked me what are the things that surprise me the most of what I've seen. And I would say that it stuns me how much a shop owner will invest in tools and equipment to fix cars. They will invest up here in Canada. We have a licensing program, so you have to go through an apprenticeship program and you have to bank so many hours of working in a shop combined with education. And it takes at least 6,000 hours to become a licensed technician. You have to have that time in. And some people I know actually are up to 8,000 hours in training. And yet I've seen some people who are running their own business and they've taken all this training to fix cars and yet almost no training on how to manage the business. And it amazes me that people would think, well, I need to learn how to fix a car, and you do. I mean, I don't know. You would not want me fixing cars, I assure you of that. I'd be your worst world's technician. I'd be cursing and throwing tools, and not that any technicians would do that, but I probably would because it's not my thing. But there are some people who are brilliant at it, and I've seen some of the absolute best technicians, and I don't say that lightly, I mean best technicians, and they're struggling in their business. I see their financials and I say, you need to learn how to manage the business. And I've had some people say, well, won't that come naturally? It doesn't come naturally. And I see a lot of people as well, they'll spend a huge amount of money, and rightly so, on the tools and equipment. So they'll invest money and time in training, and we believe it takes 40 hours a year for a technician to stay current. But I think we should do 40 hours a year in management training to stay current as a manager. I mean, look how much management has changed. We talk about the car having changed. Well, I just give you an example of what it was like in the 70s writing service, and the differences now. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like 5 years from now. And you see the people who will invest every piece of equipment known to man. Mike Kelly and I went into a shop recently in Vancouver. I'd say it was probably a year and a half ago. And I went in with Mike and I was stunned. I mean, this guy's shop was huge, and I'm looking at this room full of parts. You know the story well, Mike. Sorry, not parts, but equipment. And I said to the guy, can I take some pictures? Because you know what, sir, I have never seen this much diagnostic equipment, and he was OCD. He was organized, every piece of equipment in place. It was all labeled. He knew where everything was. You didn't just come in and take something. You had to let them know by putting a chit there so you knew who had the tool. If you went to find it, it wasn't there. He had scanners, he had scopes, he had laptops, he had every cable imaginable. And I said, I can't even imagine how much you spent. And it seems to me it was $180,000. And sadly, the last time I was in Vancouver, Mike said, you know that guy we stopped in to see? I said, yeah. He said, he's out of business. Out of business. And there's another fellow who just, I found out this week, went out of business. And Mike, you know the location well, I won't mention it, but they were open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, but a 12-hour day wasn't a 12-hour day. Oftentimes those days were 14 hours a day. The employees would be there well after because the owner didn't want to say no, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. And you would think, I mean, what, something like 16 bays, something like that. I've been to that shop. It's incredible. But the guy wouldn't take training. And one of his advisors wanted to come to one of our classes. He signed up for the class, and as it was getting close, the boss said, no, you can't go to that class. We can't afford for you to be away. We need you to be here. And he didn't want to spend the money on the class. Honestly, now looking back, his check probably would have bounced to us. But anyway, just this week, I heard that the bailiff was in, the sheriff was in, and seized every piece of equipment. And here's a business that worked 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day, and simply didn't make any money, who did not want to invest in training. I want to tell you a short little story, and it's a story of 3 shop owners in Calgary, Alberta. And I like the story because they're all in the same city. I've trained, as I mentioned, all across Canada, all 50 states, and there's a lot of reasons why people think their business doesn't run as well as somebody else's. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard, but it's different here, it's different here, it's different here. I was in Vancouver on the island in Nanaimo, and this guy said, hey, Kelly, have you ever been to Nanaimo before? And I said, yes, sir, I have, actually, quite a few times. He said, well, then you know it's different here. And I said, what's different about Nanaimo? He said, oh, we have price-conscious people. And I said, oh, that's where they went. I was wondering because they just disappeared and all the cheapskates were all sudden gone and they moved to Nanaimo. Everybody listening to this knows that you've got some people who are cheapskates. The national average is 12% of your customers are total cheapskates. So people think it's different in a big city. I've been in big cities. They say, yeah, I know, but, you know, those small towns, they can get away with anything they want. If I was in a small town, it would be different. And then I'll be in a small town. They go, oh, no, you can't do this stuff in a small town. Everybody talks. Like all they do in a small town is talk about where their car gets repaired. Like, no. And they go, yeah, but if you're close to a big city, there's the problem. You're in a small town. People drive to the city. But I've heard if you're in a big city close to small towns, they'll drive to the small town. I was training in Red Deer, Alberta one time, and somebody said, you know, it's different in Red Deer. And I said, what's different about Red Deer? And he said, it's a medium-sized city. He said, you know, it's not a big town. It's not a small town, I should say. It's not a big city. We're stuck in the middle. And I said, what is it called? Malcolm's Auto Repair? Like stuck in the middle? Like, no, you've got to stop blaming it on weather and your location and your streets and all of these things and realize that it's all, for the most part, about how you manage your business. It's not about whether you're here or there. I had a fellow just recently who was from the UK who took some of our webinars. I think he probably found out about me on LinkedIn. He just put through another order I saw on PayPal yesterday for 3 more classes. And I was chatting with him by text or email. And he said, Kelly, I got to tell you something. He said, I'm thinking to myself, but it's different in the UK, but it's different in the UK. He said, now I laugh every time I think that because I hear you say it's not different. I've had so many people say, but it's different here, but it's different here. Different than what? Everybody seems to think their place is different, and he really appreciated my discussion about that because then he realizes it's not about being in the UK, it's about the business. So back to this Calgary story. There are 3 shop owners that I know, and the reason I like the fact that they're all in Calgary because we're talking about the same size city, we're talking about the exact same weather conditions, we're talking about the economy being absolutely identical no matter where you are in the city. Things are for the most part equal, except that in Dustin's shop, I've seen he does about $67,737 a month in sales. And then there's Kendra. Kendra's a shop owner, and she has $94,832 in sales a month. And then we've got Scott, I guess the star performer, and he's doing $127,008 a month. So you wonder, what's the difference? I mean, is it the location? Is it the size of the bays? Is it how many service advisors? Is it how many technicians? How many technicians do they have? And I want to show you some information that I call the technician's earnings potential. And I want to show you Dustin's shop, Kendra's shop, and Scott's shop. 3 shop owners, and guess what? They all have 3 technicians. Dustin has 3, Kendra has 3, Scott has 3. And so in an average month, the average technician is at your shop 40 hours a week, approximately 20, 21 working days a month, once in a while 22, sometimes 19, but the average is 168. So that tells us, that the average shop with 3 technicians has 500, I keep on putting 40, a little dyslexic there for a second, and Kendra has 3 technicians, so her technicians are there 504 hours a month, and so are they at that shop. Now the difference is, how do they manage the business? Well, the labor rate, just so you know, is $101 across the board. These guys are 101. These guys 101. Actually, you know what? I think it was 115. I want to get my numbers back to where they were. 115, 115, and 115. So all things being equal, they each have 3 technicians. Their labor rate is identical, and Dustin's doing $69,000 a month, Kendra's doing $97,000 a month, and Scott's doing $130,000. Well, how's it possible? I mean, how's it possible to have 3 shops in the same area with 3 technicians each, and one is doing $130,000 a month, $60,000 a month more than the other shop? Let's bring this into a year. And by the way, I'm going to be sending you this spreadsheet. You're going to get a copy of the spreadsheet. And if for any reason you don't get it, we don't communicate, whatever it is, you can send me an email and I will send it to you. The average in a year, in the United States, it's a little higher because Americans work. We in Canada have 2 weeks paid vacation in a year. In the U.S., they don't typically take a lot of time off. In Canada, the law says you need to pay somebody 2 weeks paid vacation. There's no law like that in the United States, and we have, depending on where you live, about 10 statutory holidays. But most people are on this call and you're in the U.S., so I'm just going to go with 6,000 hours. And that's based on a technician working, and I'm still giving a little bit of time off for vacations and holidays. We're talking about 40 hours a week, 50 weeks in a year. So we've got 2,000 hours. Your average technician is in your shop 2,000 hours in a year. So let's take a look at this in the month. Dustin would have 3 technicians at 40 hours a week, 50 weeks in the year, a couple weeks off for vacations and holidays, and you can adjust that for your shop. There's a place over here where you can do that. And you've got Dustin, who's got 3 technicians. Here's the problem. It's a management issue. Dustin's productivity is about 60% on average. What that means is his technicians spend about 60% of the time working on stuff that makes money. Productivity, from our definition, is how much time do we spend making money, and the non-productive time is how much time do we spend losing money. There's only 2 kinds of time in your day. There's making money time, there's losing money time. There's no neutral. It's either you're making money or you're losing money. And these guys only spend about 60% of their day. 40% of the day is wasted. Years ago, I did a little bit of work in the construction industry, and honestly, I much prefer automotive. If you're going to be on automotive, you've got to be pretty serious. You've got a facility, you've got bays, you've got lifts, you've got equipment. What I can tell with the construction industry is you need a pickup truck, a ladder, and a dog, and you're pretty much in. But I respect the automotive industry because of the amount that you need to put into this. And when we were in the construction industry, there was a study that was done where they took a video camera and they put it on a construction site for an entire day, and then they analyzed it. And they found that something like 35% of the time was spent looking for tools, getting up on the ladder, not having the right tool, coming back down, 35% watching what was going on. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting, Mike, if in your 14 Midas stores, if there was a camera looking into the bays, filming what was going on, and we analyzed it at the end of the day, and how much time is wasted in looking for tools, arranging tools. And then there's other things, of course, there's smoke breaks and there's talking, and I'd love to know. I'd really love to know, Mike, you would probably have a better sense of this than I, but I'd like to know how many technicians start the day with a coffee break. I mean, they get there on time. They're there at 8 o'clock like they're supposed to, but they get the coffee and then they get some donuts and then they're chit-chatting a little bit and talking about, the election recently or sports or whatever, and they kind of sort of get going at about 8:15. Well, I'm not going to get into the detail, but your technician's time is worth about $4 a minute. On average, $3 to $4 every single minute. So when we're losing 40% of our day, that's a lot of money. The
Kelly,
efficiency, yes?
can I interrupt for just a second? And I just
Yes.
tell you a quick story, because always when we talk about these things, it's numbers on a sheet of paper, and it tends to be a little bit perforce. But I can tell you a little story that puts flesh on the bones. When I bought my first business, when I left the Midas corporate world, I didn't actually buy a Midas franchise because they wouldn't sell you one if you worked for them. You had to resign and then apply. And so I wound up buying a little business. You're familiar with them out here. It's a chain called Budget Break and Muffler. And I bought one, and then I bought a second one, and then eventually I sold those and bought my Midas shops. But when I first bought that store, I had 4 technicians working in the shop. It was a fairly low-volume facility that we doubled the sales within 12 months and then doubled them again in the second year. But during that first few months that I owned the business, I had 3 of the 4 technicians were young guys in their 20s and 30s, and I had one guy in there who had been the manager, but he was a qualified technician as well, and I demoted him when I bought the business and put him back on the workshop floor. And he was, I think he was about 50, 51, something like that. The other guys were young guys. And they used to claim that they did all the work and he did nothing. What does Ralph do? He just stands around, he doesn't do much. We outpace him, we do more work, and so on. And I, at the end of the period, whatever it was, a week or a month, I would add up the productivity numbers. And always, always, without fail, Ralph would outpace them. He would do more work than they would do. So my argument was, well, I think you're wrong, actually. You don't think he's doing any work. He's actually doing more than you're doing. Oh, that can't be. That can't be. And I observed him for a period of time, and I watched what he did. And what he did was, you just talked about going back to the toolbox and looking for the tool and can't find it and go look on the bench, then go ask somebody, and how much time is wasted per minute doing that. Well, what Ralph would do is because he'd had so much experience, he would load his cart. He had a toolbox, and then he had a little cart that he would roll under the car with wheels on it. And he'd take the work that he was going to do, and he'd go to the toolbox, and he'd load the cart with all the appropriate tools for that job. He'd make one trip from the toolbox to the car, and never again would he go back to the box. He had it under the car, ready at his hand when he needed to use it. So there was a great deal more efficiency in the way he did work. They wore out a pair of shoes in a couple of months. He wore out nothing because he didn't constantly make useless trips backwards and forwards. He'd have the tools, he finished the car, did the work, road tested it, put it back on the lot and started the next one, and did the same thing with that. So just a little bit of flesh on the bones of how a guy can appear to be doing very little but doing a lot more than you think he is because of efficiency.
And, I appreciate you saying that. It's all about perspective. Like I was thinking about when you were talking about that, if I was a customer and I was looking at that store that we talked about, that one, the big one that was working 7 days a week, that owner well, nice man, really wonderful person. I met him.
Great guy. Yeah.
Oh, he was like wired for 220. He was just all over the place. If you wanted to talk to him, you were following him. He was going, moving. He was really busy, losing what, 300,000 a year as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
His back rent was $70,000. That's why the sheriff came in. But if you're a customer and you saw this massive facility, how many bays did he have?
Well, he had 16,000 square feet. I think he had a dozen bays.
60.
A dozen bays, and then he had a big shop where he did the trucks.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. But so if you're a customer and you drive by, and it's a big place, a huge place, the waiting area is one of the largest I've ever seen ever, and you think, oh my God, they're making tons and tons of money there. And Kevin, I suspect the same thing with you, being a parts person, and you see people that are busy, and you're thinking, yeah, well, how come you can't pay your parts bill on time? And then you've got somebody else who's seemingly slow, and yet they're current with their parts bill. So you can't just tell by activity. Somebody actually said this to me, Bob O'Connor, again, my mentor, a wonderful man. He passed away a few years ago. I was very fortunate to speak at his funeral. But he said, if you want to know if a shop's making money, go there at 7 o'clock at night. If all the lights are off and nobody's there, they're making money. If they're still there, they're losing money. And I remember years ago driving down to Jekyll Island, Georgia. I flew into Atlanta and I was going down to speak at a conference. And I was driving down the highway and I was stunned to see how many shops were still open at 9 o'clock at night. That one's open. That one's open. And I thought, losing money, the labor rates. I phoned some of those. They were in the 40s. It's just crazy. They're trying to make it up in volume. Anyway, so back to this. So Dustin's technicians are 60% productive, and it's easy to blame the technicians and say that they're just slow. But in reality, and I know it sounds crazy, but if your technicians are slow, their productivity is actually higher and their efficiency is actually lower. Why? Because productivity is how much time of the day a technician spends working on income-producing work. Mike, you had a lot of technicians. You know how it is. Who's harder to keep busy, a fast tech or a slow tech?
Oh, to keep busy, a fast tech.
Oh, absolutely, no question. You go to you're working on something and you're on the counter. They come back, I'm done. You're done, like done. Oh yeah, completely done. What's my next job? Tell you what, why don't you get yourself a cup of coffee and I'll get this next job estimated and get the sold, get the parts on the way. Slow guys, holy crap, you've got the next 3 cars ready to go into the base. You've got the parts ordered, they're there, and you're looking saying, what's going on here? Well, a person who is slow spends more time doing something. Now, they're not productive, I mean, in the sense that we're not making money, but it's really important to understand the difference between productivity and efficiency. And I can tell you as a trainer who's done this for 29 years, this page is my absolute favorite because it shows you the power of management. Productivity is how much time is spent in the day. The highest that could possibly be is 100%. Kevin, if you had a shop and you said to me, Kelly, you were here 8 hours today, how much time did you spend actually working on cars? 10. Now that sounds good. Don't you love when somebody says, I give you 115%? That's impossible. That's not what this is about. If I'm there at your shop, Kevin, for 8 hours, the most amount of time I could spend is 8 hours. It's impossible to spend more. I can bill out more than 8 hours. That's efficiency. But productivity is how much time of the day. And I can assure you the difference between Dustin's shop, Kendra's shop, and Scott's shop, I know these people really well, the difference here is they spend more time working at cars, I should say, at Scott's shop, and they're faster at it. It comes down to, at the end of the day, how many of the 6,000 hours in the year or the 8 hours per technician per day or 168 hours, it's labor inventory. The most valuable thing that you sell is labor. How does the average shop do? I can tell you from my experience, very poorly. The average shop sells 4 to 5 hours a day. So they sell 4 to 5 hours a day of their time, and yet they're there for maybe 8 or 9 hours. I know some great shop owners who don't have an advisor because they can't afford it, and they can't bill out more than 3 or 4 hours a day because it's distraction, and they're not left alone to focus it. I know a fellow who was a dealership technician billing out 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, but the average was 12. And now he owns his own shop, and his goal is to get 6. If he can get 6, he'd be just thrilled with that. Why? Because he's got one distraction after another, after another, after another. So productivity is how much time is spent working on the cars, and 60% is what they're doing at Dustin's shop. Efficiency is how fast the technician is, and the average technician is 100% efficient. When the time estimating guides are done, they'll take the same car, have 3 different technicians working on the car, which, by the way, includes reading the work order, the repair order, whatever you want to call it, depending on what country you're in, getting the tools, organizing the tools, get the parts, the test drive before, the test drive after, all of that's part of the time. If we sell the work correctly, a technician should be able to maintain that 100%. But here's the problem. What happens if the car is 13 years old? What happens if it's got, our van, for example, had 500,000 kilometers on it, over 300,000 miles? That's no longer a typical car. What happens if it comes in and it's frozen solid and you have to wait till all the snow comes off? And I feel sorry for technicians standing below cars with all that water coming down and snow. And then there's other times where the car's been in an accident and something's not easy, or the person comes in and says, I know it's a little challenging with getting that hood open, and all you need to do, if you got two people now at $4 a minute, and you take pliers and you pull it this way and yank here, well, then you can get that thing opened. Or the car's been abused by the owner, or somebody else worked on it, like the brother-in-law, whatever. There's lots of reasons why a job takes longer. If it's something wrong with the car, not the technician, something wrong with the car, you need to charge more for that. And Scott's shop does that. They make adjustments for non-routine tasks. What percentage of the cars would you say you work on that are cut and dry, get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out? Fairly new car, no big problems with it, no rust, no dust, no broken bolts, no abuse, just cut and dry. Well, if we're working on 2- and 3-year-old cars, maybe yes, but the older the cars get, the more non-routine they get. What I'm saying is, because it took the tech longer doesn't mean there was something different about the tech or wrong with them. It could have been the car. And if it was the car, we need to charge more. It's that simple. Kendra's shop does that a little bit. Scott's shop does it consistently. So in a year, of the 6,000 hours that they were at Dustin's shop, they produced 3,600 hours. Isn't that sad that they had 6,000 hours and only sold 3,600? Could you imagine if it was spark plugs, and in a year you go, oh, we bought 6,000 last year. Oh, we sold 3,600. How many are left on the shelf, Kevin? None. What happened to the other ones? Let's make it a day. You order spark plugs in the morning. 8 are dropped off at your shop at 8 o'clock in the morning. You count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you know that all 8 were there. That day, you know 4 of them were installed in a car. At the end of the day, the other 4 that you bought, that you saw there in the morning and probably signed for, are gone. Oh, well, we'll see if we can do better tomorrow. The next day you buy 8 tires, you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 installed in a car, and at the end of the day the other 4 are gone. What happens? Well, we'd freak out to find out where those are going. And yet we buy 8 hours of a technician's time in a day, and we only sell 4 or 5. We don't wonder what happened to the rest. At the labor rate of $115, the labor potential becomes $414,000. The parts going along with that, he does about $393,300 a year in parts, and his parts, and by the way, the extras that we look at here is sublet, tires, towing, shop supplies, and environmental fees. So line 22 is just parts. Line 24 is parts plus all those extras that we charge for, sublet, etc. So they do $828,000. Kendra's shop, they still have 3 techs, and they are still there 40 hours a week, and they're working about 50 weeks a year. But they're more productive. Their technicians spend more time working on income-producing work. The technicians are faster. There's lots of reasons for that. Tools, equipment, ergonomics, the things that Mike just mentioned. And we produce 5,040 hours at $115 an hour. I won't get into all the detail here, but they're going to do $1.159 million. At Scott's shop, 6,000 hours, just like Kendra, just like Dustin, but they are spending 90% of the day working on stuff that makes money. Only 10% of the day is wasted. Again, the highest productivity could be is 100, because you can't do more than 8 hours work in an 8-hour day. The efficiency is faster. Why? They're probably selling more maintenance. They're managed better. They're tracking the time. They're pre-booking appointments. They're pre-ordering parts. They're doing a lot more maintenance. They're less of a fix-it as a brake shop. I mean, it's not easy just to say in a nutshell what there are. There might be a dozen things or a couple dozen things different, and you'd have to watch the management. This shop produced more hours than there were available, 6,750 versus 6,000, and this shop did 1.552 million. So the difference of 724,000. But something occurred to me the other day. Is we're paying for 6,000 hours at Dustin's shop, we're paying for 6,000 hours at Kendra's shop, and we're paying for 6,000 hours at Scott's. Why? Because they're all hourly paid technicians. They're not performance paid. So you're paying for 6,000 and only getting 3,600. This shop's paying for 6,000 and getting 5,040. This shop's paying for 6,000 hours. The point that I'm making is this. The payroll for Dustin, for Kendra, and Scott is the same. Now, it might be a little bit different on how much they make per hour, but I know the shops, it's probably, pretty close. We're not talking huge, vast differences here. What we're looking at is the payroll is going to be almost identical. And look at that. The payroll doesn't increase. If you go from selling 3,600, but you're paying for 6,000, and now you're selling 5,040, you're still paying for 6,000. And now you've got 6,750 and you're only paying for 6,000. In reality, that is 750 hours of 100% pure gross profit. You didn't have to pay extra. Now, if it's performance-based paid or flat rate, absolutely. So look at the difference. $724,000 added to that is that the payroll for Scott, Kendra, and Dustin is identical. What's the difference? Well, I tell you what I know to be true. The number one thing that GemCard does, in my opinion, it does a lot of amazing things, is it tracks the time. This required in the day a time clock. You had to have some kind of system that you knew when the technician started in a job, stopped, not per car, but per labor operation. Now, if you look at the dealership environment, they've used the time clock for years and years and years. As far back as I can remember, they did the lick 'em and stick 'em. And you take that sticker and you put it back on the work order. Some people tried to fudge it and punch on the back of the work order. That's not helpful because what happens to the time in between? So at the end of the day, you've got to do a study and think, okay, this person started in this job at this time. Okay, well, the next time they were on a job was, well, 14 minutes later, and then they were, what's the 14 minutes in between? What, at the end of the day, would, if you sold 5 hours, what happened to the other 3? Well, we don't know. Well, you want to track and find out what happened. Was it waiting for parts? Let's fix that. If it was waiting for customers, let's fix that. If it was waiting for the advisor, let's fix that. We need to find out what the problem is and fix it. And although this is the most important thing that I know that I've taught for dozens of years, or 29 years, this is where the money is made. Once you figure out how to sell your labor, you will automatically sell the parts and the sublet and the tires and the towing. Take a look at this. Dustin did 414,000 in labor and 414,000. Our benchmark is 50-50. We'd like you to see half the money come in the door from labor and the other half come from everything else that you sell: parts, sublet, tires, towing, shop supplies, environmental fees. Kendra was selling more labor. They went from selling 3,600 hours to 50-40, which means you've got all of those hours with parts added to them and more shop supplies, more environmental fees, etc. Scott's shop sold 6,750, so that's 6,750 hours of parts potential. Now, if it's diagnostics, of course, there's no parts to go along with that, but the diagnostic rate should be higher anyway, which it is at his shop. He's got 150% effective labor rate for diagnostics, so there's a lot of reasons why it happens. So back to what I'm saying, the number one reason I believe this is not implemented is because people didn't want to get a time clock. It's the drudgery of this clock. When I was teaching this way back in the day, before we had laptops and projectors, we had transparencies. And we put the transparency up there on the screen. And I found a cartoon that I would put up there before I would talk about the time clock, which, by the way, is my favorite discussion. And it was a little picture I'd put up there, and I said, you know what? If your boss says they're going to put in a time clock, I'm thinking this is what comes to your mind. And I turn on the screen, and it's a snail, and the snail's arriving at work, and he's ready to punch his time card. And I thought, that's what people think. We want you to punch a clock because we think you're slow. That's not what this is. The most important diagnostic tool that you have is tracking the value of your labor. How much did we sell? What didn't we sell? How do we fix that? And again, Dustin shop, Kendra shop, Scott shop. The difference between Dustin shop and Scott shop, $724,000 a year. Same number of hours and exactly the same labor rate. So when I saw what GemCard does to track this, I thought, this solves it. Now we don't have to have a time clock. We don't have to have time cards. We don't have to say to a tech, we're getting a time clock and we're going to have you punch this thing in and hit this button. They feel like they're a factory worker or what we call a salt mine, right? Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Kevin, sorry, not Kevin, but Mike. And I want him to show you some of the things that I saw that day watching him do the demo, getting angry and angry, not at Mike, but, you know, you ever have parents say, you know, well, I look back and say, you got it made today. As parents, you got all these wonderful little things. Well, you look at baby carriages from the 50s and baby carriages today, they're not even remotely the same. And we've got the things that rock the kids back and forth. We don't have to, it's timer and you say it's a lot easier to parent today. You got all these tools. Well, it's the same thing with being an advisor, all these tools available to us. And yet I've seen shops, Mike and Kevin, you've seen far more than I have, who've got brilliant bays, brilliant technicians, all the equipment. I was talking to a fellow recently, I won't mention the name of the shop, but he's one of the most beautiful facilities. I've been to his website. I've not been to a shop, but I've been to his website. And I thought, what a beautiful place. And I was chatting with him. I said, by the way, what shop management software do you use? I thought he was going to mention the top three. He said, oh, we use QuickBooks. Now, QuickBooks is good software. I've been using it for 20 some years. It's great bookkeeping software, but it is not shop management. He said, well, that software is kind of expensive. And I thought, you have no idea how much money you're leaving on the table by not having the proper software. Could you imagine doing it with just all of that, doing all of that with something like QuickBooks? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Mike, and Mike's going to go through some of the software, and I just need to go through here and make him the presenter. And yes, I did this earlier, and now I need to, oh, there it is. Learning new software is fun, isn't it, gentlemen? So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you, if you can accept that, and now we're going to take a look at Mike's computer.
Okay, can everybody see? I presume we can see, you can see, Kelly.
Yeah.
Here's what GemCar looks like. When you open up the screen down on the left-hand side of the these are functions that are used on an irregular basis, primarily for setup and housekeeping. There's a few in there that where we can generate reports, planning, and so on. But generally, during the day, GemCar uses this window here, the point of sale window. And let's just begin at the beginning. Let's see how quickly we can get a customer into make an appointment, and then get the customer information into the computer and also the vehicle information. So we're going to start with the phone rings. We're going to make an appointment for this customer who wants to bring the vehicle in at 2:45 in the afternoon, and it's for an oil change. I'm going to give the oil change to Connie. She's an apprentice. She's quite capable of doing this work. So I've just made an appointment at 2:45 for Connie to do an oil change on this customer's car. That's how quick it happened. Now I want to put the customer's information in, and I'm going to show this little function. It's called 411 lookup. It's useful for anyone who has a landline, and as we all know today, in today's world, lots of particularly younger people, but older ones too, have cell phones and don't have landlines. That's the case primarily in big cities, but in smaller, more rural areas, it's still the case that many people have a landline, and for that reason I'm going to show you this little function. Now I took this telephone number out of the white pages in the Vancouver phone directory. So here we are. We're going to enter the customer's phone number. The name of the customer, incidentally, is John Mackay, and he lives in North Vancouver. So I'm going to put in his number and press enter, and it's going to ask me, it's going to say the customer doesn't exist. Do I want to create it? Yes, I do. And the next question is going to be, do I want to get this information from 411 lookup? And I'm going to say, yes, I do. And it's going to go now to the internet, and it's going to find on 411 this customer's information. And we wait for the internet to do its work, and there it is, and it's North Vancouver, and I'm going to select it. And it's going to populate, there's the information, the customer's address, 399 Newdale Court, North Vancouver. I'm going to select it, and it's just populated my work order with his information. One other thing I'm going to do before I leave this, I'm going to put in his cell number, just in case I want to communicate with him via text. And if you could give me your cell number, Kelly, I'll put yours in there. What is it?
555.
555.
You're asking a trainer to give out his cell phone number. I will give it to you, sir. 587. It was a joke. 555 is what they do in movies, Mike. Right?
Oh, okay, go on then. 587.
587.
587.
889.
889.
2021.
2021. And of course you're going to change that 2021. 2021. You're going to change that number after this this webinar so that you don't get wasted time on the telephone. Okay, so now we've got the customer's information into the computer. It's there. Now I want to give this customer a vehicle. I need his vehicle information, and I'm going to use something that I happened to, a little while ago, I was down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I was at a gas station, and I ran into George Benson, the jazz player. He was parked in front of me at the gas pump, and he was driving his Rolls-Royce Phantom, and it was a beautiful car. And we got into a conversation about his motor car, and then he told me who he was. And he said, my wife was with me, and she said, "Can you get a photograph of us all?" And so I took a picture of George in his car, and George and my wife, and then finally they took a picture of me and George together. And from the picture that I have of his car, I know what his plate number is, so I'm going to put it in here, and it's AMV 1428, and it's an Arizona plate, so I'm going to put in AZ, and I'm going to press enter, and it's going to pull this information from motor vehicles through Carfax. So there it is. It's a base or a Phantom Coupe. Well, it happens to be a Phantom Coupe. I'm going to say yes to the information, and there's the data. There's the serial number of the vehicle, the VIN number, the make of vehicle, Rolls-Royce Phantom Coupe, 2009, 6.8 liter engine, V12, and so on. And I'm going to select it, and it's going to populate my work order with his vehicle information. Now, the benefit of this, of course, is that the old way of doing this is to go out to the vehicle for the technician to write down the VIN number through the windshield or the door jamb, put it on a piece of paper, and bring it back to the service advisor. The service advisor can't read the writing. Is this an I or a 1? Is this a 0 or an O? Or the technician's dyslexic and puts the numbers backwards way around in the first place. So if the VIN number is wrong, all the information is wrong. So this is a really, really quick way to get a correct number to put into your system. A few more questions. Is it automatic? Yes, it is. Is it a gasoline or diesel? It's a gasoline. Is it a double cam? Yes, it is. Is it in kilometers or miles? Well, in this case, it's in miles because it's registered in the United States. In Canada, it would be in kilometers. So we're going to say miles. One other question before we leave the service advisor's work. Does the vehicle have a wheel lock? How many times in a garage does this question not get asked, and when the technician goes to pull the wheels, there's a lock on it and he can't get them off? He comes to tell the advisor, the customer's left the shop, they try to contact him by phone and he doesn't answer, and the worst case scenario is by lunchtime, nobody's worked on the car, the customer comes to collect it, and we have to tell him that, sorry sir, your vehicle has a wheel lock and we couldn't get the wheels off, so we haven't done the work. All of a sudden it's your fault. Why didn't you ask me this when I was here? Well, we tried, but we couldn't get a hold of you. The rest of it is history. So this prompts the technician, the service advisor, to ask the question. And the customer might say, well, it's in the toolbox, in trunk. And we save this information. And you'll notice now that the vehicle, the work order is populated with the information, the make of car, the customer's name and address. The last 8 of the VIN are highlighted in red for reasons of having to order parts for this vehicle. If you have to call the dealer, and in this case in a Rolls-Royce you probably will, they're going to ask you, the first question they're going to ask you, what's the last 8 digits of the VIN. Instead of having to count back, it's already highlighted for you. So we're going to put a little oil change on it. I'm going to do, you get to know the codes, but in this case it will be a GW2, enter, and it's going to extend over, and it's priced at $39.95 in this case, which is way too much for a Rolls-Royce, but we won't worry about that at this point. Now this little window here is the punch clock. This is what Kelly was talking about. This is the modern version of the old time clock with the card, and the technician would start the day and put the card into the machine, and it stamps it with a little timestamp. So this is an electronic timestamp. This is the window that we use for the punch clock. There's some other values to this punch clock other than the obvious ones, which is keeping track of the number of hours scheduled, the number of hours actually spent doing the work, and the number of hours we bill to the customer. Those are the critical numbers, and it's the variance between those 3 numbers that's important. Specifically, hours billed, hours spent. And the variance between those 2 tells you whether you're efficient or not. So some questions were asked. Does the customer need a shuttle service to to his home or work or the airport or wherever? Is the customer going to wait? Is the customer going to leave the vehicle, or does the customer need a vehicle, like a courtesy vehicle? I'm just going to say for the sake of this that he's going to leave the vehicle. We're going to assign this work to Connie, and it's going to come in at 0245. And it knows that this oil change is going to take roughly a half an hour, so that's the scheduled time for the work. And it posts it into the estimate. Now, I want to show you very quickly the other side of this punch clock, because there's some benefits to this other than, as I just said, calculating the hours and the efficiency of the workers in the shop. In the workshop, there'll be a computer terminal, and the technicians access it through this window. They go to the punch clock report window, and they open up this little box, and they put their number in there. Well, in this case, this was technician 1. She puts a number in and enters, and it shows the customer's vehicle, the type of vehicle, and what the vehicle is in for. It's an engine oil and filter change. She starts the clock, and the clock starts to run. And
select the job, Mike.
Oh yes, sorry. And the text turns from black to blue. Now there's a color-coded system in GEMCAR that tells at a glance the status of the work. And in this case, for this job, that text turned to blue to tell the service advisor that the work is underway. Where did it go?
Your job memo is open. Just hit the door on the bottom right. Bottom right. There you go. Exit.
Oh, there it is. So the text is turned from black to blue. While she's working on the car, she pulls out a filter off the shelf. She puts out a PH 4612, and it posts a filter with her name alongside it, so that the advisor at the counter knows that somebody's added a part other than at the point of sale. While she's working on the vehicle, and this is where there's a benefit here, she notices it's got a cracked serpentine belt and a leaking valve cover gasket right side. So she leaves a note for the service advisor. If we go out of this window and go back to the counter, you'll see that the filter is flagged here, so that tells the service advisor that a part's been added other than at point of sale. Obviously, we need to make sure that the customer is aware that, in this case, it was a filter, but if it was something greater than that, we need the customer needs to know that we put parts on his vehicle. Generally, if it's done at point of sale, we've already told the customer what's going to be needed in this case. So this flags us to tell us we need to do that. Now, in the interim, the customer, Mr. Benson, calls, or in this case it's Mr. Mackay, calls and says, how's my vehicle? What's the progress on my vehicle? I left it this morning. All the service advisor need do, instead of leaving the counter and going off on a walkabout around the store to find the tech in the car and find out what the status of it is with the customer waiting on hold, he simply just goes to the calendar, clicks on the calendar, and there's the vehicle. It's blocked out under Connie at the time, in the time frame that they suggested, and the text has gone from black to blue. So that immediately tells the service advisor that the work is still underway. It's not completed. Up in the right-hand corner, there's a little note, a little icon there that shows there's an internal note. So now I can tell my customer, okay, Mr. Mackay, your vehicle is still being worked on. The technician is doing the work. But the tech left me a note here, and I see that the tech has left a note saying you have a cracked serpentine belt and a leaking valve cover on the right side. Would you like us to quote for those? So it's a great way to get information from the workshop to the counter without having the traditional on-hold walkabout, find the tech, he's gone out for a smoke break or he's on a road test, and you can't find him, and therefore you can't give the information to the customer. A great way to get information quickly and efficiently from the workshop to the counter. You'll notice how quick it was to get that information into the computer with correct spelling of the customer's name and his address, and of course more importantly, the correct VIN number and vehicle information. There's if I want to buy some parts for this car, let's say that I'm going to go to Napa to buy the part. This is something that Kelly talks about. You know, in the day when he was working on the counter, there was no such thing as an online purchasing of anything. I'm going to decode the VIN here. We may have a problem with this because this is a Rolls-Royce. It may not have any parts available. I'm going to say a belt. Maybe they'll have a belt. And let's see where we've got one that's so I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to transfer it. And in the bottom, you'll notice that at the bottom of the screen here, it gives the part number, the description of the product that you're purchasing. In this case, is a serpentine belt. There's a list price here of $56.45, which is the Napa suggested list. And in the box next to it, it says matrix. And this is an opportunity for you as a shop operator to import that part and sell it at your matrix price rather than the suggested list of the supplier. In this case, I'm going to bring it in at my matrix price. And in GemCar, there's a matrix which is not quite an algorithmic one, which Kelly developed some time ago, but a sort of a combination of an algorithmic one and a somewhat modified one, which gives you a closer result to the algorithmic result. I'm going to move the part into my estimate by simply selecting this $sign. And it's going to ask me, do I wish to apply the matrix price or the Napa price? And I'm going to select the matrix. And it's going to bring the part in at 104.18. Now, the job thus far is $159.08. Now, before I quote my customer, I need to know I'm making money on this job. To do that, I simply click on the total button, and it opens up this dialog box. It shows me I'm making 60 points on the parts. I'd say I want to make 65, just for the sake of this presentation, and I select it. When I exit here, this price now will change to reflect the new margin. If I want to know how much money I'm making on a specific item, I select the belt, for instance, and I put my cursor under the price, and it opens up a little dialog below it, and a dialog box below it, and it shows me that the cost is $41.59, the unit price is $116, the margin is 65 points because I've just adjusted it, and there's an additional margin of $2.04. The additional margin is GemCar's method of collecting the cost of the software from the customer. In the same way that you would buy a scanner and charge to do diagnostic work and charge the customer a greater labor rate for the charge out of diagnostic work to pay for the scanner, this is much the same with the software. If you need software to process the customer's transaction, then the customer should pay for the software. And so in effect, GemCar pays for itself with that additional margin. The shop operator has the option, if he wishes, to turn that off if he wants, but it's advisable to use it. If you want to leave little things, simple little things, but they're important. Do you want to leave any notes about your customers? You can do it in this little box. Customer has 4 children. I mean, that's a small thing. His wife is a nurse. And if I click on the make box, it closes, and it's not seen by anyone. It's just information that I might need at the counter. So when that customer comes back, let's just go to a new one and show what happens when you put the customer's name in now. From now on, that little make box will be highlighted in red, which tells me that there's notes on this customer. And if I press it, it tells me what those notes are. So I can have a little conversation with my customer about his wife, who's a nurse, and the 4 kids. And you know, he's mighty impressed. You know, it's 2 years since he was here, and they remembered this. This is great information. One of the things that GemCar allows you to do, which is quite unique in any software that I've ever seen, it allows you to make barcodes for things. For instance, if I select this belt, let's say this is a common part that I use on a lot of vehicles. That's not in the system, so I can't use it. So let's take this engine oil filter change. This is something I do on a regular basis. I do lots of them, so instead of having to remember the code to key it into the computer, I can just simply create a barcode for it and have a list of barcodes at the side of my computer, and I can enter them much the same way that the gal at Safeway enters your parts into the system when you pay for your groceries. So I select the barcode icon, select the part, select the icon again, and it's going to ask me what column. Well, it's the first column because I haven't done any yet. It's going to be the first item in that column. It's asking me, do I want to include the price in this barcode as well? Yes, I do, and it will create this barcode, which I can keep on a sheet of paper at the side of the computer, and I can create barcodes for all sorts of different things. For all those little miscellaneous parts that sit in bins that you buy in bulk, oftentimes are given away as part of your shop supplies, but sometimes maybe a bit more valuable to give away in shop supplies. As an example, hose clamps for radiators, they cost you $1.87 to $2.05, $2.10, and they retail at somewhere around $6 or $7 each. Well, that's too expensive to give away as part of your shop supplies. So we recommend that you create a little label with a barcode on it and put that barcode on the end of the bin, and then as the technician uses the parts from bulk, he simply uses his wireless scanner and enters that part onto the job order. Those are the basic things that I would show to a customer. I mean, there's a lot of other features. History as an example. Let me quickly go to that one because it's probably worth looking at. I'm going to put in this customer, and I'm going to show you where the history comes from. Okay, so the customer here's the little history button down in the bottom left-hand corner on the dashboard. If I select it, it opens up this little box. Now, let's say that the customer comes in, he's got a leaking water pump, and you diagnose it, and he says, well, I was in there, not long ago, and you put a water pump on it. Well, there may be hundreds and hundreds of invoices here. And you don't certainly want to have to go through each one to see when you put the pump in, and he can't remember. So the short circuit is to put the word, do a description search, and we're going to put in the word pump and enter. And if there's any invoices with a pump on it, whether it be a water pump, oil pump, fuel pump, any kind of pump, it's going to show up here. There aren't any. Let me take this word out and put in filter and see if we've got that one, because that's more common. There's two. So if I check on this invoice, it's got a filter. It's an oil filter. If I check on this invoice, it's got an oil filter. Now let's say that there was a part that had failed within a certain period of time, and I found the invoice. I simply press purchase order or shipping slip and purchase order, and it shows me where I bought it, when I bought it, and how much I paid for it. So if there's any warranty issues, I know right away where I got the part and who to call to get coverage on the warranty. When I talk to people who are looking at buying software for their businesses, and we talk about this little function, any number of times they'll say, "Oh my God, that's a nightmare when I have to do that," because we have to go through the records physically by hand, go through the file, and find out when it was done and where it was done. So this is a real time saver. If I go back to the previous invoice, there's a tire storage module, which is useful. Many people do tire storage now. If I put in tire storage in this little box, and say there's 4 tires, it'll open up this little dialog box, and this is where I put the information about the tires. I can put in the make, the model, the size, the position, where it's come from on the of the 4 wheels, the wear factor on each tire, the location of where they're going to be kept, whether there's tires only or whether they include wheels. Remarks down here, any damage that might be incurred on road rash on the side of the wheels where he's parked, anything like that I can record here. And more importantly, if I want to, I can also take a picture of it. Now, there may be also, we said prior to, as part of this estimate, there was a belt that was a cracked serpentine belt that was needed. So if I can take a picture of that belt, the cracked belt, with my mobile phone through Google Drive, I go to my Google Drive here, add the part, and I'll just scroll down here and find the picture of the belt. Let's say it's that one. I open it, and now I can send this picture to my customer via email of the broken part. So gone are the days where you'd have to call the customer and say, well, look, you've got a broken part here. Would you like us to hold it up for you and you can come down and have a look? Those days are gone. We just simply send them a picture or a video or whatever it is that whatever piece of information it is that you need to get to him via email. Incidentally, this idea of sending the photograph of the broken part to the customer a couple of years ago when we started this was state of the art. Now it's become redundant because a lot of this is done by tablet. Not everybody wants to have the tablet technology in their shops, but those who do eliminate the need for the old-fashioned picture. If I go out of this invoice and then come back to it, you'll notice now that the little dialog box is highlighted in red. And this picture, whatever picture it is, whether I took a picture of the damage on the vehicle when he brought it in or the broken part or whatever it is archived with this job. So as long as the job is archived in the computer and the customer come back at any time, whether it's a year or 2 years or 18 months or 5 months, we know there's a photograph of something attached to it and we can retrieve it. If I go to common issue in shops, of course, is credit. Let's just put in another customer with some credit issues. And you'll notice that now in this particular case, I put this customer into the computer, and he's an old-time customer, and he has his little customer box is highlighted in red. That tells me that he owes me some money. That's just a flag for the service advisor to tell him that there's a receivables issue. And there, if I press on it, it opens up his agent report, shows me how much he owes and how long he's owed it for. I can get the same information, incidentally, from here. That's also an agent report. But just a quick flag for the service advisor to say, oh, wait a minute, we've got a problem. This guy owes us some money. Oftentimes in shops, when you're trying to get paid for something and it's being difficult, the best opportunity is when the car is in the shop on the hoist, and we can pull the wheels, get the car ready for the inspection, and then bring it to the customer's attention that he's got an outstanding bill and would he like to pay that. This is where we send texts. If I want to send a text, I can do it from this little box here. And I thought I know why, because we're using the different customers. So if I want to send a text here, this is where I would send a text to Kelly. I just print my text in there. Kelly, your car is ready. And I send the text, and in a second, Kelly should get a little beep on his phone telling him that he's got the text message. That pretty well shows most of the things that I would show on a typical There's his phone. That was the dingle of the receipt of the text. Those are the typical things I would show on a demo. There's a lot of things. I mean, you could spend hours doing this, but for a short, sweet view, a little sort of roadmap of the software, that's what it looks like. Over to you, Kelly.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Now, I'm just going to ask you to do one more thing, and I know that I want to be cognizant of your time. You have a meeting to go to, and you have about 7 minutes to go to that meeting or before you leave.
Thank you for remembering that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. But what I'd like you to do is to pull up the reports. One of my favorite things is reports and seeing the information. And I find a lot of people don't have the information that they need to be able to run the business differently. My son, for example, worked as a service advisor for a few years. I won't mention the name of the large company in Canada, but I asked him one day, I said, by the way, what's your gross profit on parts? He said, I don't know. I said, what's your gross profit on labor? I don't know. What's your average hours per repair? I don't know. They didn't want to share that information. I did a class years ago for WorldPack, and it was service advisor skills, and I was talking about gross profit versus markup and how to use a parts matrix and, selling labor and what gross profit on labor was. And the fellow complained to WorldPack and said, your trainer is teaching management stuff to service advisors, and that's none of his concern. And I
Mm.
thought, oh my goodness, you're expecting the advisor to maintain a specific gross profit, but he doesn't know what that goal is. He doesn't, or she doesn't know what the gross profit that we're actually selling at. They have absolutely no idea. Are we making money on this part, losing money on this part? Are we making money on job, losing money? And I think there's certain things that a service advisor needs to see every single day. Now, you don't want to see all of this every day. That would be micromanagement. But I believe that we should determine what do we want our service advisor to see at the end of the day, the daily report. What do we want the advisor to see at the end of the month? And then what are the management reports? What are the things that I should see as a shop owner or manager? And one of my favorite things about GemCar is that you can password protect certain things. So an advisor can see what they're able to see, but they can't go in and take a look at, for example, the general ledger or some other information that you don't want them to see. So Mike, if you just want to spend just a couple minutes, and again, I know you only have about 5 minutes left, which is good timing. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a report. This is probably one. Let me start by saying there's a plethora of reports that you can generate in GemCar. There's a global system where you can go into any number of different parts of the software and measure various things: inventory, customer management, purchases, and so on and so forth. But from the perspective of running the business, this little report, it's called a summarized sales report, gives you probably all the information that you would need as a manager or a service advisor of a shop. It gives you parts, labor, and total in terms of sales. It breaks it down into environmental taxes, parts, job hours, internal work, job packages, jobs to add, truck jobs and new tires and so on. But the upshot of this is it gives us these gross numbers of sales, 27,000, some tires, there's $4,000 worth of tires, total of $31,000. It gives us the cost of those parts and the gross margin on those parts. So in this case, doing pretty well. It's making 60 points. Similarly with the labor, it gives us the number of sales in job hours, in job packages, in truck jobs, total of 659 with a cost of 206. Giving us a almost 70% gross margin on labor, and the total is 32,400, 12,945 in cost, and a 60-point gross margin, which is pretty good result. Somewhere between 50 and 60 is great. So you've made $19,000 worth of profit, $19,500 worth of profit for this period that we've measured. Then it gives you a little bit more information below that, which is critically important to the service advisor to determine how well he's doing in marketing his business and generating customers. In this case, in this period, we had 15 new customers. Total number of customers for the period was 12. The sales per customer, the profit per customer, the number of visits per customer, the total number of new vehicles, and the number of vehicles, the total sales per vehicle, the profit per vehicle, and the number of visits per vehicle. Now these numbers, incidentally, are taken from a database of a real shop somewhere, I'm assuming somewhere in Eastern Canada, but I'm not sure. However, they're real numbers. The number of invoices for this period was 33 in total, number of hours per invoice. Now there's something that's worth looking at. Number of hours per invoice, 0.7%. That's awful. Awful. You know, if you're looking at 1.5 to 2 hours labor per job, they've got a long way to go. Number of working days in the period was 20 days. Average invoices per day, 2. Pitiful. Profit average 60 points. That's okay. Sales average, but of course in this case they're making so little money it doesn't really make any difference unless they've got no rent. If they've got no rent, they're probably above water. Otherwise they're deep in the doo-doo. Sales average per invoice is 982. That's pretty good. The average profit per invoice 590. That's excellent. sales average per day, and then the profit per day. So they're doing $1,600 a day, and they're doing a job average of almost $1,000 per job. So I suggest there's something wonky here, but job averages tend to be, at least in my 14 shops, and I don't think it's changed a whole lot when I talk to people today. And I'm involved with a company called Big O Tires here in British Columbia. We've got 25 locations. When I look at their job averages, is somewhere in that $500 to $600 range on average. And the margins are not quite as good as this. They're making 50 points if they're making that, and some are making lower. And if they're very high volume of tires and less volume of mechanical repairs, they're making even less. 30 points in the tire business is very good. So that's that little report. That probably tells that at a glance, that's a great snapshot of this little business and how well or how poorly it's doing. So if I were a service advisor, I would look at that every day, obviously, or maybe not every day, but I'd look at it on a weekly basis for sure. And I look at the job average, and then, of course, from this, I would set targets, and I'd know, roughly what I'm expecting to do on a daily basis in sales, and you can break it down from there into profit and so on. How many labor hours do I want to sell for the day? What's my target, and what do I achieve? And in my case with my 14 stores, I would have this information posted in the lunchroom of the shop, never in view of the customers, obviously. But this information will be posted in the lunchroom. The target would be there, and the previous day's result would be there. So on a day-to-day basis, the technicians and the service advisor and the manager would have access to that information. So they know whether they're on target or off target, and if they're off target, what they need to do to make it up. Now I go to shops, as you do, Kelly, and Kevin, I'm sure you've done it too, and the guys are in the dark. They're like mushrooms in the dark. They have no idea what the target is for the day, what the target is for the week, and what they've achieved of it. So, it's critically important that they be included in this process, that they know what the expectations are, and they know how well or how poorly they are doing in achieving the result that's expected. And then, of course, based on that's how you motivate them, and that's, of course, how you should pay them too. So there's a million other reports, but this is one that we have close at hand that we can look at. And then again, as I say, you can custom make them. And Kevin is probably the most familiar with this aspect of GEMCAR of anyone I know. I don't think there's much about GEMCAR that he doesn't know, because he also plays the role of the senior trainer in the whole organization, both Canada and the United States. So he dives down into this software deeper than anyone else. And so he can give probably a lot more detailed information about what the capabilities of the software are than I can. But this is a quick little snapshot of what I would look at if I were running a shop and using GEMCAR. Over to you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure why you gave this as an example, because if it's Atlantic Canada, it's different there, right?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It could have been anywhere in the U.S. and it would have been different there as well. Okay, thank you very much, Mike. You've been very kind, and I appreciate your time, and I'll let you get off to the meeting that you're heading to. And I'm going to turn it over to myself for a few minutes, and I want to interject. The idea with this was to provide some really good training, in addition to good information, in addition to how the software helps this work. I wanted to briefly talk about the gross profit calculator, and Mike mentioned about a matrix, and that's what this is. This is a matrix, and it basically allows us to get a higher gross profit on lower ticket items, and a lower ticket higher ticket item, a lower gross profit on that. Our benchmark is 50% overall gross profit. I can tell you that most shops are sitting around 38 to about 42 roughly. Some shops are much lower than that because they're using list price. We believe you should never use list price. List price is a list price if it was sold over the counter. It's not a takeout, it's a takeout price, not an installed price. You don't go to a restaurant and expect the food to be the same price that you could buy it for, a steak at a restaurant, $18. You go to the grocery store and it's $5.99 a pound. Well, it could be the same steak, it could be the same caliber. In fact, it could have come off the same cow, but it's going to cost more in the restaurant. So don't allow people to use the takeout price and compare it to your installed price and the warranty that you provide with that part. We recommend a 2-year, 24,000 mile warranty, or in Canada, 2 years, 24,000 kilometer warranty. We want to have the absolute best warranty in the area. So if somebody says, well, your part was expensive compared to somebody else, well, can I ask you a question? Do you know what the warranty is? Ours is 2 years, 24,000 kilometers. And they go, well, I don't know, I never thought to ask. And then they call that place back and find out that the warranty was only a year, and they think, oh, I see, your warranty's much better, your part's better, that's the reason it's different. And by the way, one of my favorite things about GemCar that I just learned recently is that on the customer's invoice, you could have it show only 6 numbers of the full part number of that part. So too often it shows the full part number, so a person phones and says, do you have this part and how much is it? Well, they can't do that because it's only a 6-digit number, and if they called somebody, they'd say, we don't have a part with only 6 digits. So I love the fact that on the customer copy, it only shows a portion of the part number, but on your copy, it provides the whole thing. So I want to briefly take a look at that. Anything that's costing less than $3, our benchmark is that you get an 80% gross profit on that. So all you need to do is put this price in here, and it's $13.75. And for those of you that don't have a matrix, you're watching this demo, I will send you a matrix. All you need to do is email me at kelly@kellythecoach.com, kelly@kellythecoach.com, and I can send you this matrix, and I can also send you actually 2 articles that I've written on how to justify to a customer if they say the part that you have is more expensive than the one they saw on the internet, it's more expensive than the one at the Napa store, or the CarQuest store, or the Lord Coast store, or any store. I mean, that people blame the part industry for that. It's not their fault. They have to do what they need to do to run a business. It's our responsibility to add the value, and never compare your part installed in a customer's car with a takeout part price in a store. And so our recommendation is you sell that for $13.75. Here's the deal. If your gross profit benchmark overall in parts is 50%, and it is, some people say, well, I can't get 50 on a super expensive part. I can't get 50 on an engine. I can't get 50 on a transmission. There's some pretty expensive electrical parts out there that I can't get 50% on, and I would agree with that. You'd price yourself out of the market. But what happens if we reduce it from 50% down to 35, but anything that's a lower ticket item, $3, 3 out of 1, 8 of 1, whatever, and we don't get higher than 50, that means you can never, ever get 50%. If in some instances you go below 50, and in no instances you go above 50, you can never get 50 because some stuff's being sold for less than that. So we offset that, and that's the way the world works. If you go buy a cup of coffee, let's say at Starbucks, the gross profit percentage on that is going to be in excess of 90%. Now it depends on how much cream, sugar, and all the little extras, but black coffee, of course, they make more on, but the gross profit is going to be about 90%, but it's only a $5 cup of coffee. But when you go to buy a brand new car, you're certainly not going to see 80% gross profit on a higher ticket item. This is the way the world works. Lower ticket items, high gross profit percentage. Higher ticket items, lower gross profit percentage. This is more dollars, but lower percentage for gross profit. This is less dollars. And just so you know, we've tracked it. The average part price, and you can track it for your own shop, you can just simply find out what you spent in parts for a month, divide that by the line items, and you can see what your average part cost is. We've tracked it. It's about $26.50 on average. So the sweet spot in your matrix is right here between, let's say, $12.01 and $45. The bulk of your purchases are going to be right here, somewhere between 25 and 35. Definitely in this range here, you're going to see the bulk of your purchases. That might be 40% of your purchases just from those 2 lines. So it's really important that you use the matrix there, because if you don't, then you're not going to get yourself that 50% GP. So when a part is, we go into this line, $26.50, We stick it in here. And by the way, one thing I love about GemCar is that they built this matrix into it, and then I went and changed it, modified it to what might call the algorithmic calculator, which is literally tens and thousands of calculations that go intermittently through here. I shouldn't say intermittently, but they're algorithmically. And so instead of going from 80% to 75, when the price goes up by 1 cent, it actually goes 80%, 79.99, 79.98, 70.97. So between this line and this line, there would be hundreds of calculations in here. So a part that costs $26.50, we sell it for $66.25. Just to let you know what they just recently changed in GemCar in the last couple months that I was thrilled about, and I was happy that they did it, patterned after the calculator that I put together. It's not possible for this computer to do every one of these algorithmically. It's just way, way too many calculations. So what it does is it'll take that part, and let's say it's a $28 part, well, it'll take the up to $25 amount at 65 and only the portion over 25 to 28, and we'll sell that at 60% gross profit. And so it's dividing it between the two, which I've done the math on it, by the way, and it works extremely well. What does this mean to you? I've tracked it in an average 3-bay shop. If you use a matrix over using list price, it should net profit $54,000 a year simply by, instead of using the list price, which a lot of people do, or discounting it. And by the way, this works for dealer parts as well. It gets down here to dealer parts, you use the matrix. I see so many people that say, oh, I get less than a dealer part. Why should you? The customer doesn't know where you bought the part, and the part number is not going to match with the one from the dealership. So they call the dealership, and you know what happens there? They call you back and say the part was cheaper. Now, they don't tell you that the labor was more expensive, because some dealerships, they've come down on the parts prices and offset it with a higher labor rate effectively. So yeah, the job would have cost me more, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about that the part there was cheaper. Well, the question is, did they talk to the parts department for that price, or did they talk to the service department? Not in all dealerships, but many dealerships, the part price on the counter in the parts department is lower than it is as a part that's installed. Why? Because there's an administrative fee that happens between the parts department and the service department. There's a little bit of extra work that happens there. Plus the service department is adding that warranty onto the part, which is higher than the warranty that they're going to get when they buy it over the counter. And so it makes perfect sense. So your question to your customer should be, that sounds good. Can I ask you some questions? What's the warranty on the part? They probably don't know. Say ours is 2 years, 24,000 kilometers, which is probably twice what it is at the dealership. Not always, but in most cases it would be. Some stuff actually is 6-month warranty, and you can take a look at what you could, compare 24 months to 6 months, and that's huge value to the customer. And of course, the same quality of part that you're talking about, that let's say they saw it online cheaper, maybe it was a lower quality part. And the question is, did you speak to the parts department or the service department? Because the price differences between the two, we've tracked it, is somewhere between 12 and 15%. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then you can bring it home for us, Kevin. And I'll make you the presenter so we go back to your software. A couple things that I would really appreciate that you would do here, because my perspective of this is from a shop owner's perspective. I think like a shop owner. I've been doing this for all these years, and I think like a shop owner, and I know the kinds of questions that people ask. My question would be to you, what happens if I've got another software program and I upgrade to here and I have to enter all of that data, all the customer information, the parts information, my inventory? So if you could address that as well when you get into your presentation here. And for some reason, we are not hearing Kevin. I know he's there.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm sorry about that, Kelly. Thank you so much. I was speaking and I had my line on mute because I didn't want to disrupt the previous discussion.
Have you ever had somebody in real life that you'd like to mute?
No.
My daughter, I love my daughter. She's a wonderful person, but there was times I thought if I could just mute her for the next half hour. I shouldn't have said that. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, that's great. So thank you, everybody. Kevin King, once again, with GemCar. I try to help with some of the support. I handle training. I really have a passion for the software, like we talked about, and what Kelly was talking about with things as a shop owner to make sure that we cover that. Um, so the stuff for me that's really important is we were talking about the parts store, and I mentioned before that I have that relationship, I have that background. I'm the partner in the part store. So just for all of you as well, you have people on the other side of that phone or on the other side of the internet that I encourage you to reach out to them. When they understand that you want to understand your business better, they want to help you. The goal is they have a lot of information. They know what you buy, what you don't buy. They know how much of it you buy. They know how many average dollars you do. That's the whole business model. We deliver parts, pick them up, drop them off, and turn around and warranty them with no labor cost. Sometimes we deliver 9, 10 times a day, and our stores are open, they're still making money, and they're profitable. We understand the parts business. You're in the labor business, but your parts store can help you and be the partner to help you educate yourself on what's happening inside. So I really, when Kelly was showing the calculator, one of the things that I really thought I would just stress is that if you want to know what your average ticket is, you don't even need to calculate it. You call them. A responsible store manager would know that number, or a sales manager could tell you in minutes exactly what you're spending with them, and they'll know. And their goal would be to help you grow your business, to sell more parts. That's what's in it for them. For you, it's sell more labor, and the parts will come along for the ride. So um, I have that perspective whenever I'm training or I'm showing. So if I get off on a tangent on parts, feel free, you can reel me in, Kelly. Um, the the things that I would like to show you is deferred work, history checks, pre-booking appointments, how to be able to sell more parts quickly. Is that all right if I can move right into it, or and did you want me to cover something specifically first? Excellent. So I'm going to go forward with, the pre-booking appointments. Some of the things that I think are important, like Mike Kelly was talking about, is if you have a customer and you've found them by license plate number, stock number, they're in your database and they've been created, you're going to quickly be able to recall them. If you have another software product that you're going to be switching from or moving from or have that concern, well, I've had it for 20 years, what's going to happen to all that data? We're a software company. We're a technology company. We'll grab that database, convert it, and import it into your GemCar. Not only do we do it once, but we actually do it twice, because included in moving forward GemCar comes training. So what we do is we actually grab your database, we'll convert that, install it into GemCar, so while you're training and you're learning, you're still using the product that you're familiar with, that you've had for 20 years, that you've been getting along or getting by with. This way you're learning on your customers, your vehicles, your license plates, VIN numbers, all the information that you may have while you're practicing and you're training. When you're ready, you're up and you're running, everybody would say, well, how long does it take? Normally in 10 hours, we're able to get you up and running to understand your system so that you can add customers, vehicles, make estimates, add parts to the ticket, be able to invoice it and generate reports on a monthly basis for the government and for your satisfaction on sales reports. So in 10 hours, you could basically be up and running and trained with your GemCar. And the learning curve gets reduced because if we're using your customers, you don't have to all of a sudden create all of those. It's very quick. You're able to search by plate number, the phone number, and go through. So we convert your data from your customers, all your vehicles. We also will grab your sales history and put them into your GemCar. So when you want to run sales reports and use some of the tools that we were talking about earlier with Mike was showing you on sales reports, if your data is complete, we can grab it, convert it, install it into your GemCar. So when even the sales reports all of a sudden become optimized with what we have to offer from GemCar. So it's a great tool. It really helps, and we do it for probably 35 different softwares, my last count that I had. If you have a unique application, bring it to our attention. Bring it to me, and we'll find out what the development team can do. Our developers work just for us. We're not working on 6 other projects. So the company is solely owned by one individual, and our whole focus and goal is exactly what we're showing you. It's the GemCar. We don't have 9 other products branded under 4 different names. This is what we do, and we do it very well. So what I'd like to do is just show you some things that Mike was talking about, and maybe I could just bring that other perspective to it. If I was to bring in a customer, let's just say that Kevin had come in, I could search by his phone number, license plate number, stock number, any of the information that I might have on file. I created myself as Kevin just as customer 1 to make it easy so that I don't have a lot of keystrokes. As I search for Kevin, I'm able to see the list of vehicles that Kevin has as he's been coming to me for many years for service. He's built his fleet with me. So I'm looking for today, he's calling me about his Suburban because he indicated he'd like to bring his Suburban in for service. As I select the Suburban, GemCar is going to tell me, hey, there's pending estimates for this customer. Do you want to display them? If I say yes, it's going to show me the list of what I have for other jobs that I've created. In this point here, I can see in the title, there's work that I've rescheduled. So as Kevin's telling me his story why he wants to come in, I can look and see the deferred work of stuff that we've talked about. Everything in red here is going to be past due. Everything that's blue is preventative maintenance. And I have a date and time and mileage that the service advisor or myself have recommended to the customer. And I've educated him before every time he leaves so he knows this is my expectation or what he could expect to spend when he comes. I've also, in a lot of cases, given him a total. I've indicated to him that, in January, really, we should talk about having your front brakes done. As you see here, I have January written down. As I go a little bit further, I can see in March, I've also had a discussion about his disposable income and said, we probably should plan on doing your rear muffler assembly in March. In April, you probably ought to look at taking your tire storage out so we can get your winters off and put your springs back on. While we're there, maybe we could do the transmission service, but if not, we could postpone it until June. Your mileage with what you drive is going to be recommended. So at the point that he's calling me for my maintenance service, here it is January, I'm now talking with him on the telephone, and I can see that he's interested in having his front brakes done. So I'm able to say, no problem, Kevin, that's great. When would you like to come in? So he mentions to me that he's interested in coming in the first week, in this week. I can say no problem at all. I can select the work that I'm not going to be doing today because I mentioned to him, hey, when I schedule that service, remember we talked about having your front brakes done. Would you still like to have that done while you're here at the maintenance service because it is January? Yes, that's great. I'm able to pull off all the other work and not have to rekey it every single time. And I can just postpone and reschedule it for a little bit later. So the idea behind this is one of the items, okay, so I can just postpone and reschedule that work. As you see, it's all grayed out. I'm able now to talk about his front brakes that he's calling me for an oil change. So when I schedule the oil change, I hit job 1 is the code that I use. So I say, yes, I would like to do an oil change. Do I want to use the items that were used last time? Yes, please. So as I click, yes, GemCar is going to go into the history, not pull any type of information out. It's going to pull specifically the filter, the fluid, and the quantity that I used the last time this vehicle was here. So I don't have to get into the whole discussion about was it 0W20, was it Dexos compliant, is it DTM4, is it does it meet all the Honda spec? It's all pre-done by the punch clock, by what the technician had added. So now I have a complete oil change with the brake service that we had done and do the work on them. As I mentioned it to it, Kevin says to me, Kevin, you mentioned the brakes, and it was funny because I thought I had the brakes done on my vehicle last time I was there. So I'm able to say, no problem. Let me look into that, and when you bring it in, we'll double check and look and see. Is there an implied warranty? So basically what I'm telling the tech is that I want him to check, is there a warranty implied? So from here, when the vehicle comes in and I'm able to actually get it because I've just over the phone said, hey, based on our service records, we're recommending that you come in and have the brakes done. So as I schedule that appointment, I just click on the calendar right here. I'm able to select calendar, and I can pre-book that appointment. I can see today is very full, but maybe in the afternoon I could get it in. So right here after lunch, if I double click, it's going to ask me, do I want to schedule that job in Peters Bay just after 1 o'clock? I say yes. That job now is going to be scheduled right here just after lunch. So when Kevin's vehicle comes in and I'm actually working on it, as the technician is ready to print the work order, or if he uses the punch clock, which makes it paperless, if I click on the work order and I print it, I'm just going to walk you through what that looks like, because one of the alternatives that we didn't discuss is that GemCar also with the barcodes has an integrated punch clock on every single ticket. So as the technician we have to have a place to put the keys, so maybe we print a work order and we have a little inspection on the side here. We're always looking for extra work for the next time the customer has to come in. So if we scan the barcode, GemCar would automatically start the time. I go bring the vehicle in. On average, we're going to add 8 to 12 minutes on every single job of billable time for the jobs that we're working on. The other good thing is that when we print the work order, it's going to trigger an inspection report. In this case, I had 2 different jobs. But here are our inspections, and these inspections are called GemWork inspections. We have 20 different inspections, and they're customized for the customer. They have the customer's name, the vehicle, the VIN number, and all the information, and this is to indicate to the tech that I want him to go through all of this process. I do not want him to do oil changes in 10 to 12 minutes. I want him to take the full 30 minutes and find work for the labor of the future opportunity, LOF, as Kelly says. That's what that stands for. LOF stands for labor opportunity of the future. And then we're going to record it and put it in as a reminder for the next time the customer comes in. So the different GEMWork inspections would be printed, the technician would fill them out, and we'd be able to go through and do the service work. The technician sees the note on the work order that I put implied warranty. So for him, if we go to the punch clock, we can actually see that he's going to be working on it. So if I go into the punch clock, as Mike talked about earlier, and I put in the technician's number, or I scan the barcode if I have a sheet hanging on the wall, and we're going to talk about barcodes, what that means and where you get those and how that's included in what GemCar does. But basically, if it was Peter, and I'm sorry I put it in there. I was so happy just to click and show you how easy it was to schedule, but it's Peter that's going to be working on Kevin's job. So as Peter would come in and he schedules the work, he grabs and he's going to do the front brake job. So as he's on the front brakes, we could go through, yes. I'm now punched in on Kevin's Suburban. I'm doing the front brakes. The technician, as I see here, there may be a warranty implied. So I want to know, is there actually a warranty with this? So as a technician, I say, boy, I know it's been here before. I can see there's history right down here on the lower left. I click on the history. I see there's 34 different invoices for the Suburban. Oh my goodness. Did we ever do brakes? I type the word brake and I hit enter. GemCar is going to show me that there's only 6 invoices that I've done brakes on this particular vehicle. So I'm able to look at it and see the detail of what's going on. The difference with the punch clock is that technicians don't need to worry about prices. So in GemCar, we protect that from them. So the techs are actually part of the solution. They're helping us advise on service work that needs to be done. As we can see here, we definitely replaced the front brakes. We did do some work on it. This is where the work was rescheduled. If we click here, we can see that we purchased them. If I click on rotors, I could actually verify whether or not I bought them. But I also can see, from Mike was discussing earlier, the little briefcase is illuminated, tells me that there's documents that are linked to it. So as I click on that, I'm able to verify, geez, did we actually do the brakes? Apologize, I have the luxury of using 2 monitors, so it automatically opened on the other one. But here I can see, yep, we definitely put pads on it. And if I click on the caliper and the rotor, I'm able to see, yes, we definitely put a caliper and a rotor on it. So if I had warranty as a technician, I know that when I want to dig into this and I'm going to tear it down, I'm able to find out where it came from, what was done, and I'm able to get the warranty going or get the other parts ordered. So this really is helpful in streamlining and the productivity of making things move along so that our techs aren't standing around leaning on the door while we're on the telephone or we're test driving a vehicle. They have complete control to be able to see what was done and what needs to be done for the vehicle. From here, if I made a recommendation, as Mike had indicated earlier, I could type a note here so that the service advisor would see, yes, warranty qualifies for warranty. Because I looked at the mileage, qualify for warranty. I have ordered. So for our technicians, they really become empowered to manage their day. So all of a sudden, they can move on to the next part of the job. Maybe it's going to be the oil change while they're waiting. We can move from the brake job and punch in on the next. So as a service advisor, it's great because if I take the time to schedule the work and I put it in, my technicians all of a sudden are driving their own productivity. They're able to see, you know, while I'm waiting on those parts, I'm going to move to the next job. So we can see here, everything that's in black hasn't been touched. He's down here. He's in work in progress on the final job. So the punch clock and the pictures, the way we link them, the technicians can upload those photos automatically from their cameras and put them in. We're able to see the history. The deferred work is great because the technician can say, you know, it's not a severe service. We can postpone that until June or July, have them come in for maybe in a transmission service. We're able to postpone that. The barcodes, as we were talking about them, and we've made a little bit of discussion about that. I just want to include, you know, what happens with that is we're not in the hardware business, but our goal is that when we're saying barcodes, we're talking about a handheld wireless barcode scanner like this, or a wired scanner. So we have the hardware available so that if it's wired, the reason it's wired is so that it doesn't get away. The service advisor usually would use a wired one. It would stay connected to his computer. The wireless one would be out in the shop, has a little dongle or a flash drive that plugs into the PC. So wherever they go, it has the distance of around a cordless telephone or a wireless headset. So you can get 150 feet, thereabouts, scanning doors, parts to tickets, having them come in and automatically add. Um, for the GEMWork inspections, I showed you quickly just the oil change one, but there are quite a few other ones that are available. If I have a customer that's going to come in, and let's say I'm going to look for this job here is Paul. He's going to do a transmission service. He's a little later in the afternoon, but I want to print and take his keys because he's going to leave the vehicle with me. As I print his work order, what's nice is that the GEMWork inspections are great because this is a work order, place to put the keys, and they automatically are triggered so that with the job that I'm doing, I've linked that inspection with that labor procedure. It's going to include the service for the customer, the vehicle, so the tech knows what he's looking for, and it's going to give a complete inspection, what needs to be looked at, what's okay, what needs to be looked at, or what needs to be replaced. So this is great because the tech actually gets the piece of paper, he can fill it out. It could be an editable PDF. I find that most people are talking about tablets, the new buzzword. We do offer a solution for that, but the paper ones, there's 20 of them that are included, and you can link them to different jobs. So if you have a vehicle coming in for electrical diagnosis, we have one for that. If it's a cooling system flush, we have one for that. So the basic job, steering, suspension, I have the tires and wheels off. The goal is that if you are operating an inspection process, you are going to sell more labor. And GEMCAR gives you the tools where you're going to be able to schedule that work. If this transmission had come in, or we had this vehicle come in for a service, let's say that it was a front-end service, and we had an inspection for while the wheels were off, we wanted to include maybe a visual safety inspection. So as that inspection was added, because the customer was due based on mileage, as the work order is printed, they print a screen, gives me the ability to communicate with the customer. Would you like for us to take a look at your steering and suspension because you're triggered by the mileage? It's something that we recommend, whether it be a courtesy inspection or we charge for it. But the goal is, if we go through and we do all of this information, you are absolutely going to find more work for this customer. And advise them morally and ethically, you're going to maximize every single vehicle that comes through. If I ended up determining that there was work to be done, let's just say if it was maybe an alignment. So if I have an alignment, I could add that and say, you know, we just don't have time today because there's too many vehicles that are going to be on. Would you like to pre-book that? Maybe we could just schedule that for the next service that you're going to have. We can actually take that alignment off of this ticket here, and we could just right-click, propose and reschedule with a reminder, and we could say, how about you bring it in just before tire season? We could have you in maybe in April. We're going to be running a promotion. How about Tuesday or Thursday, which will work best for you? And I can call you the week before and confirm your appointment. So as quick as I put the alignment on, I'm able to just click here and say, okay, no problem. We're going to schedule you for April 4th. I'm going to call you the week before and just confirm what time of the day you could bring the vehicle if you're going to be waiting for it to drop it off to us. And when I invoice this, that appointment would automatically go into the reminder for Paul the next time that he comes in, or at the end of the month, I would print the reminder, mail them to him, and then I would call the week before. We also have the ability in GEMCAR to communicate using text, as Mike had mentioned earlier. So if I implement that process and I make it simple, the service advisor can make recommendations, put it onto the work order, right-click, propose and reschedule with a reminder. I'm pre-booking February. I'm pre-booking April in January. That's pretty awesome stuff. But the best part is when it becomes time where I need to follow up on that, well, I don't have 12 other people to help me manage all of those reminders. We really make it simple. If we click on the calendar, we look a week before, the week prior, grab the calendar, you can see overview like this. Let's say that I'm looking this week for next week. I click on the Friday the 13th and I want to make sure that everybody knows that their appointment is due. I could just go to Paul here. If I had a cell number and he was in the system, I can just right-click on him and send a reminder. So from here, I can just right-click. I can confirm the appointment by text. I can just say, hey, Kevin, your appointment is due. Please be advised. Do I wish to send it? So I don't even actually have to call him and take the time to go through all the different things that go along with it. It's just as simple as making it part of the procedure the week before to go in and confirm with the customers that I want to send it. As it goes through, he's going to receive a text. If I have another customer that's habitually a problem, I could say, no problem. Oh, he doesn't have a cell phone. So I can say I have to confirm his appointment verbally. If he had a cell phone on file and would allow it, I'd just be able to select send text. So we really streamlined the process to make it simple for us to be able to pre-book appointments and then to follow up the week before, and at the end of the month to print the reminders, fold them, put them in the mail, signed by the service manager to get the customer to expect that phone call that's going to come the following week. Pre-booking the appointments, the gem work inspections. I just also would like to talk about, Mike covered the additional margin, and I want to make sure that that was clear. You know, in GemCar, one of the things that we really emphasize is we want to keep it simple. And we understand that there's a cost burden that comes along with it. But as customers are using our software, GemCar actually pays for itself. We've designed it to be helpful and be a tool for you to use. So if we have a customer that comes in, and let's just say it was Kevin bringing in his Suburban again, I'm not going to look at that postponed estimate. Here's the deferred work that I have postponed. Everything red is past due. Everything blue is preventative maintenance pending. But I'm also able to educate Kevin as he comes through. He needed extra work. I'm able to keep track of a preventative maintenance report. It's one click away. I set up and structured a simple, basic preventative maintenance plan, and I implement it with every single customer. It's going to be the same one. But there are certain customers that I can tweak it. I can do different things based on their needs or the type of vehicle that they have. So as you see here on my point of sale, one click away once I have the customer, I can say, you know, well, we need to validate because we've never checked it. You've come to my shop, but I don't know if you've ever had this work done. You're at that mark, 50,000, 60,000 miles. Did you ever have AC maintenance done? Have you ever had your brake service maintenance done on the rears? Did you ever do a transmission service at the dealer or another facility? So I put this basic maintenance package together so that I can educate the customer. And I can say, you know, short term, we just want to make sure that you know your next appointment is going to be on March 17th for your oil change. It should be around 63,000. GemCar actually tracks the mileage. If the customer has come to you more than twice, 2 invoices, we automatically forecast the driving habit based on that customer's usage. So when you put a preventative maintenance schedule like this in place, it's great because we take the math out of it and automatically populate it for you. We give you the tool, one click away, to be able to promote and educate the customer and let them know the next time, or that you're going to make a little reminder to reach out to them. And the reminders, once again, because they're blue, they're easy to identify, they're preventative maintenance. We also give you tools to track how well you're doing with that. If it was a preventative maintenance service, how much of that did we win? How much of that did we lose? These statistics are hugely important for your service advisors and your technicians. If we're asking them to fill out inspections and to continue to do all that work to check the box and go through, and we don't follow up on it, they get frustrated. They stop doing it. So we have tools built into GemCar to help drive that success and make sure that they don't get lazy and they stop doing it. This way, everybody's pulling on the rope at the same time. We do also have the electronic inspections, the tablets, and I didn't mean to downplay that. It's just that I have a lot of people talking about it. It seems to be the buzzwords as people like to use them, and it's excellent. It works really well, but it's like anything. You got to start someplace. And to implement things like this, it does take a little bit. But the way that it works is right here where it says Gem Check. I have the customer, I have the vehicle. I would put whatever the service was. If it was a tire installation, for example, that would be the one that I would then want to have an inspection for tire installation. If I click on the button, it basically pushes and generates automatically in the dashboard and will create a tablet inspection that the technician would then fill out. To be able to see what that would look like, I've prepared one ahead of time so I don't walk you through each individual step. I can take a picture of the vehicle with the tablet, with the camera on the tablet. I can go through and mark all the things that are good and that are bad. This is the final result of what the customer would see. And the idea is that we reward them and we say there are 11 items that are good right here on the top, and we can say the reason for today's visit was the tire installation, for example. If here's the 11 things that are great, your headlights, your fog lights, the brake lights, all the rest of it, the technicians can take pictures of things if there's a concern or if there's a problem. This way the customer can see what they're talking about if there was a concern about what do you mean by that. The other option is that if there is something wrong, there's a front signal lamp out, for example. We actually are able to take a picture of the vehicle to be able to explain to the customer your daytime running light is out. So here's the right one, the left one, and the technician with his tablet can draw little arrows to make sure that the customer understands and we can educate them. So at the point of decision, we're able to really educate them and tell them what's happening. The rotors, I'm pulling this back from that same picture that we used, but I just want to show you that the technician is really drawing where the problem part is. He's able to annotate what he wants to make sure that the customer understands why it needs to be replaced. I realize this one is obvious, but you get the gist of it. If there are any additional pictures for tire wear or damage to the vehicle that was there, we could actually take a picture and say, you know, there was damage here, this happened before when we brought their vehicle in. So it's a great tool, it works really well. Implementation is really easy. It's the follow-through sometimes it gets to be tough. And that's where coaches like Kelly's been talking about, and I will speak to as a trainer, is that having a new software or having software is like getting a new gym membership. Sometimes you need a gym buddy to help you move forward. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. And that's really our passion. Our software, it's 90% human and it's 10% technology. But we're really people that care about the industry. Kelly, I think I've covered the things that I had, because I don't want to just go on. As Mike said, I could go on for hours about this. I get kind of excited. All your vendors you have available. We didn't talk about one of the things, and I'm sorry I was about to pass. One of the things that we could talk about is that we have a very robust tire module. Most software dabble in it, they get around, they work through it. GemCar really understands tires. So one kit that I created, because we didn't talk about kits, but you can have canned jobs, some people call, or kits. So in this case, I created a kit, and I'm going to call it KJ2, and it's Tire Installation 2. As I select that, I'm able to decide what I want to include. Am I going to do a TPMS relearn? Yes, this Suburban does have TPMS, so I want that. I'm also going to sell him, I'm going to quote him tires. I'm going to include wheel weights, but I'm not going to put tire valves on it because it's TPMS. So with this installation, it's going to be the installation. I'm going to use standard wheel weights. No, I'm going to use taper weight. So I can say I'm not going to use standard weight, I'm going to use taper weight and static balance them and have them on the inside. And I'm going to offer the promotion of the verify alignment. If the customer selects it, that's great. If they don't, I can uncheck it. The benefit of this kit, though, is that as I select that, automatically GemCar opens up to my tire inventory. So I'm able to put in that I'm looking for, if I have a specific tire size, I could put it in, or if I'm looking for a particular brand, I could say, yeah, show me everything that's available in a Bridgestone. If there was a particular model or a particular style, basically we could select that. As we can see, we can download from your vendors a complete price list for what they have on their website or that they provide you. Items on the top are items that I've inquired about and what I have available in stock. So if I say these fit based on the description of what I discussed with the customer, GemCar quickly totals and puts everything into one fast quote. So I have my labor, my TPMS relearn, I have the items, including my tires. But the best part is that we help you so that when I go to print, I'm hitting F3 right here to display this estimate to communicate with the customer. I could email it to them. I could include photos of what the damage was or what the problems were. But in this case, I just want to show you what it looks like. And what we do is basically we mask the part number. The reason that we display only the last four numbers goes to what Kelly was talking about. If I put down that this is a Bridgestone M700 265 and I put the part number here, I'm kind of opening you up for that discussion where they're buying tires or they're shopping tires, not being sold tires. So we really package that together. And the other benefit is that we tell the customer, look, for that service, we'll stand behind it. We're willing to offer it at a competitive price. For 4 tires installed out the door, you're looking at $1,583.80 before tax. So we really put a package together so they're not seeing, well, how much is your TPMS and what's the road hazard warranty or what is this? You can package it all together, mask the part numbers, and be able to give them a price. The other way is that any time that you see inside of GemCar, clearly you have all the part numbers here. You're able to see all the individual prices. But when you present it on the customer side, we make that your choice. You can turn it on or off, whatever you would like. We give you the flexibility both ways. Kelly, with that, I think that I covered what you asked me about. Is there anything else that you would like for me to dive into?
Okay, I'm going to keep you as the presenter for right now. I feel like a radio announcer. I had to move my microphone over. A couple things I wanted to mention, then there's a couple last questions I have for you, Kevin. Just so you know, doing this demo, you are entitled to receive a complimentary webinar from Kelly the Coach. It's an arrangement I have with GemCar. And so all you need to do is, after you've watched this, just send me an email, and I will send you a list of the webinars that we have. I believe we have 8 recorded webinars. Most of them are approximately 2 hours long. various subjects, selling diagnostic labor, selling skills. There's increasing your communications between the customer, the advisor, the tech, and back, and workflow. So various subjects. We just did a 2-hour one last night called Manage Better 2017. And so all you need to do is send me an email, and I will make sure that you get the webinar. If you want further demos done on the software, you can contact me at kellythecoach.com. I'm going to be overlooking this in that it's mainly my customers that are, of course, looking at this, my clients. And I wanted to add a training element to it, not just the GemCar element. So it's not just a commercial for GemCar. I mean, it's partly that, of course, but a demo. But again, I'm stunned to see how much people will spend on fixing cars and very little on actually fixing their business. And when I saw this tool, I mean, I've worked with a lot of software over the years, and I've talked to people who use software all across the U.S. and Canada. And like I said, when Mike Kelly was doing that demo, I was completely blown away. So again, Kelly at kellythecoach.com. Simply contact me. I will send you a copy of the Parts Matrix. I will send you a copy of that spreadsheet that I showed you with Dustin, Kendra, and Scott on it. And I guess the question is, are you closer to where Dustin's at, closer to where Kendra's at, or closer to where Scott's at? And I just want to say something. Just recently, I was doing some training in British Columbia. I was contacted by the Workers' Compensation Board, WCB, and they had a client who was injured at work as a technician, and he was no longer able to be a technician, and they wanted to know if I would retrain him to be a manager, which I did. I had him in classroom for 3 days, and I wanted to do 2 days on-site and gave him access to all of my webinars as well. And one of the things that I wanted to do, because Mike Kelly knows so many people in the area in Vancouver, is I said I'd like to do some on-site training, and I went out to a shop. And I was mortified at how poorly the shop was run. The dad did a good job, but the son took over, and he didn't really get much training. He just basically said, here you go, son, run this business. Their parts gross profit was like 32%. Their tires gross profit was about 17%. And they weren't selling much of the labor. I could tell they really weren't making much money. And I was kind of disappointed. So I thought of people that I knew in the area that had taken training over the years, and I called 4 different shops, and I said, hi, I want to come out, I want to show this fellow that I'm training for workers' compensation what a really good shop is like to run. Now, part of that was because I was hoping that one of those shops would end up hiring him as a manager, not just a service advisor. He was a technician for 32 years in a shop that did not have an advisor. So that means that he was used to dealing with customers every single day. He was used to selling. He was used to estimating. He was used to contacting customers. He was used to upselling and pre-booking appointments and all of that. So it wasn't like he was totally green at it. And here's what happened, and I don't exaggerate stories. I think you know me well enough, Kevin, that I don't say everything and nobody and never and always. It's one of the problems I have with politicians. Everybody does this and nobody's that, and everybody in the country. It's lying, really. It's exaggerating, but it's lying to prove your point. But we went into this one shop, and I'm not exaggerating. This fellow, his best month he had was almost $53,000 a month per technician. Now, I know enough about this business to know that that's a stretch. He probably had some work from the previous month that was held over, carryover work. But I do know that he consistently does about $43,000 to $45,000 a month in sales. And when we went to a shop, he saw immediately the difference between the shop we'd spent the first day at and the shop here. And I looked on the wall, and here's a whiteboard, and it showed productivity, efficiency, and proficiency. The next shop that we went to was another person that I'd known for years, actually was in my management group back in the early 90s. And we went out to his shop. And I mean, again, I was there to hopefully get him hired. And by the way, the last shop we went to, the 4th shop, Peter did hire him, and we still communicate back and forth. And he is the manager at Peter's shop. But I was at Peter's shop, and Peter does really well. Not as good as the other guys, but pretty good. And I'm looking on the wall, and here's a sign that says productivity, efficiency, proficiency, a whiteboard. We were at another shop that I just mentioned, which is primarily a fleet shop, one of the most beautiful shops I've ever been. It was incredible. And a guy named Russ, who's been taking training again since the 90s, and on the wall, productivity, efficiency, proficiency. And I said, isn't it interesting that the 4 shops that we were in, the common thread was they understood labor management. and each one had a simple sign. It was all so they could change it every day. That's why it was a whiteboard. And every day they posted productivity, efficiency, proficiency. And they've been doing that since the early 90s back into the time card days. So I can't stress enough how important it is to do the labor inventory. I know that what was holding people back years ago was the time clock. They didn't want to get it. Of course, I've been in a lot of shops that had a time clock that had a bunch of dust on it because they weren't using it. But the time clock is a valuable, valuable tool. It is your diagnostics tool to find out why the shop doesn't sell the labor that it should be. Kevin, obviously a logical question people have is how much is the software? And so I'm going to turn it back over to you, and if you could spend a little bit of time talking about pricing. And I know it's not cut and dry like a packaged software that you buy from Staples that it costs this much. There's a lot of factors involved. So if you want to deal with that, and then we'll wind this up.
Great. So basically the GemCar, a standard configuration, and when I say standard, it's just everybody seems to start with around 3 terminals, 3 licenses simultaneously writing to the database. So we offer GemCar at $170 per month, and that's 3 licenses. So you could have 3 computers simultaneously writing to the database. It's a Windows-based product, so it's Windows SQL. It'll install on anything Windows 7 or newer. What I'm demonstrating to you here today is a laptop. This laptop can power the other 2 devices off of it. It just has to have enough RAM to, memory to be able to operate. So it's a 3 stations, $170 per month. We also have 10 hours of training, the database conversion, and the configuration of your GemCar. And it's a one-time fee of $1,800. So that includes a trainer, very similar like what we're doing here. It's an online format that we can share the screen. We use a one-click away direct product, and you get 10 hours of training. And in that time, that's usually when we can get you up and running. Now, obviously, Kelly's customers are obviously going to be more affluent. They're going to be better users of the software. So we do also offer packages of training that are available. If you want to use our FAQs, you're welcome to. It's very robust. It's very complete. If you want to use our online university, the GEM University is here. You could self-teach yourself. But if you just say, I don't want to read through and learn how to do it. I want Kevin to show me how to do it, or a trainer like Kevin. Then we connect, and I show you how to go through, handle your returns, set up all your inventory, import your Excel spreadsheets like that. But the basic package is $170 per month for 3 licenses, and the one-time fee of $1,800. So that includes the database conversion, and that's twice. The first time so that you can train while you're doing your 10 hours of training. The second time is when you decide you're ready to go live. You're okay, Kevin, I get it. I'm up, I'm running, I've got all my inventory in here, I have all my customers, I'm ready to go. Well, I'm all done practice. We clear everything out, and we re-import your database from what you've been using up until that day. So we actually import your database twice, plus help you configure it with the 10 hours of training, and that includes the GemWork inspections as well. From there, we could have a discussion about how much more training you need. We do offer on-site. It is something, it does have a cost, purely because of the traveling expense to go through it. But the online training, I've got to be honest, it really works well, because you just can't absorb 10 or 20 or 30 hours worth of training in a couple of days. It's just too much to take in. Whereas you can just take a bite at a time. We meet, you spend an hour, do a little homework, meet the next day, we spend another hour, then the bookkeeper gets involved and helps, they spend an hour. So it really works well, I've found, to be able to do it that way. Kelly, are you with us? So I think that about covers the pricing.
I'll take 3.
There's take 3.
I'll take 3.
And when you mention the price, and when you mention the pricing, one other thing is, I don't know what you do per month in part sales, but if you use GemCar the way that we're going to teach you to use it, the 2% additional margin, and that's not on everything, that's just on outside purchases. That's not on tires and on all the other stuff. It's just going to be when your service advisor is going to the website, he's looking up a part, and he transfers it back. It's going to add your normal standard margin that we're going to teach you how to use the parts matrix, and then it's just going to put 2 pennies on every dollar or $2 on every $100. The customer won't ever feel it. But the difference is you're going to be working with a product and a tool that's literally paying for itself, and the ink cartridges and the extra printer that you need to be able to have it in the back shop. So this way it creates its own budget and helps support so that you can get more training and you can learn, how do I go to the next step? How can I become more efficient? So with that, Kelly, that covers, I think, the pricing structure, and I'm happy to answer any questions that somebody may have, or they could forward the questions to you, and we could write up a personal proposal for whatever they need.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin, it is an absolute privilege working with you. We get on the phone, like we were on the phone last night till what, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I said, Kevin, we could go on forever. Like, I get so pumped and motivated being around you. As you can tell, people listening to this, he knows what he's talking about. You've got a great voice tone it's very easy to listen to. You know your stuff. I could have asked a couple of different trainers from GemCar. You can't tell anybody, but you're my favorite trainer. Okay, just don't tell anybody that. Anyway, I'm the kind of person like Kevin, I'm sure you could testify. I don't exaggerate, and integrity is incredibly important to me. And I was just ready to tell you that I received an email while Kevin was talking. By the way, just to let you know, I did not have my cell phone on during the call. So when you heard that beeping, but when when Mike said it's going to come, I thought, ooh, what a cool little thing would it be to have some little extra, sound to go along with it. So I held my phone over to the microphone so you could hear the text coming in. And by the way, just in the last couple of weeks, customers can now respond to that text. It used to be one way, and now they can respond to that text and text right back to you. But anyway, I'm going to turn my screen on. I'm kind of surprised that I'm actually doing this. But
Kelly?
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could I just, one more thing that I just thought of that
Go
Mike
ahead.
asked me to talk about and I didn't, and I apologize for dragging
No, we're
this
good.
out. But one of the questions that was asked was about reporting. So, the summary sales report is awesome. It really is awesome. It gives you a snapshot every day of what's going on. When you see things that are negative 750, it happens. We're going to miss key things. It's human nature. But once I go through and I clean this up, the benefit of what we do is we don't predetermine your sales reports. We give you the tools so you can have whatever you want for data. So here, I could print this report and review it, or I can export it. And when I export it, we give you it's crystal reports, so you can make any type of combination that you want. You use Excel. So in Excel, you could make your own spreadsheet. You could say, I want this report, and this report, and you can actually concatenate the data to make it whatever you want. So any sales report with any filters that you would use from GemCar, you can create and have your own Excel spreadsheets. So this way, if you don't like the way we package it, no problem at all. Make it your own. We have the tool built in. You don't need to pay us extra. You can have all the information you want. And with reports, we also have the accounting bridge, which I didn't discuss, and as I said, we could go on for hours. I just wanted to include, we do connect and have an accounting bridge for Simply and QuickBooks, so you can export your data into your accounting package once your GL codes are configured and set up.
Awesome. Thank you. It's just too ironic that you were mentioning about some of the, I'm not bragging, but some of our customers, because they're more training literate is what you meant, that they catch on. And I just want to show you, because you'd mentioned that, but just to prove it, I don't make this stuff up. We were communicating this morning. Laura is one of the trainers, and one of my clients, Luxury Auto, bought it. And look what she says. By the way, Peter from Luxury is going to go live on February 1st. He's very happy with the program. It's done fantastic. I will carbon copy you when I receive his go live request support. So what that means is he bought the software back in December. I actually was in listening on all of the training. I wanted to hear everything that you trainers do, like yourself, Kevin. She does the same thing. And he was a quick study, no question. He would experiment, he would practice and practice. People say, how long does it take? Well, how much are you going to put the effort into it? That's like saying, you mentioned the gym, I want to lose 50 pounds. How long will that take? Well, some people, it will never happen, and other people will do it quickly, and other people do it even faster, and some people will backslide and go backwards, but it all depends on how much time. And I was so impressed when I'd hear Peter saying to her, okay, I did my practicing and I did this and I did my practicing. And by the way, one thing I really like about the training that you do is it's true training. Teaching is you talking, training is the person doing. And so when the training happens, they actually have access to your software and you're comparing information, so you can see theirs, they can see yours. And so you're actually having, okay, you go ahead and do this, you go ahead and do that, enter the information. So you're not watching the trainer do it, you're actually doing it, and the trainer is actually watching you, which is the true definition of training. So I just want to end it with, again, contact me. I will be sending you out the parts matrix, which is an amazing tool. And again, if you're using List or close to it, and you start using this matrix, you should be able to net about $54,000 a year more in sales. I will send you that chart with the 3 shops from Calgary and taking a look at how much more money can be done with the exact same labor rate and the exact same number of hours of technicians. Again, my email address, kelly@kellythecoach.com. And because Gemcar is quite a large company, when you're looking to have a demo done or interested in more information, simply contact me and I will put you in contact with the sales rep that handles your area. With that, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thanks again to you, Kevin. My hat's off to Matthew. I've got to know him really well over the years. He owns the company. And I said, sir, you've got the absolute best software in the market. And anyway, with that, thank you very much. You've got questions, you can email me, again, kelly@kellythecoach.com. Go back, kick butt, and maybe try to match Dustin. Take care.